Face reveal jump scare. Hello and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. My name is CJ, Hunter x Hunter is coming back, and this is my last chance to lock in. Over the last almost couple years, I've done quite a bit of theorizing about where Hunter x Hunter is going to go in the future, and just what the hell is going on with the Succession War. Those of you who are familiar with my channel will know I tend to contradict myself a lot because Hunter x Hunter is a complex series that I spend all my time thinking about, and I tend to change my mind quite a bit. I mean, I've made 3 different videos on the silent majority culprit, all naming different culprits. So, seeing as shit's about to start happening because Hunter x Hunter is coming back, this is not a drill, sorry if this is how you found out, this is my final opportunity to nominate the theories I think are like the ones. These are the ones where, if they don't come true, you guys get to make fun of me. Oh, one of my other theories came true? Too bad, doesn't matter. These are the ones I'm putting my marbles on. I've collected them into a collage for your viewing pleasure, which will begin shortly, so you can catch up on all the SuccWar goodness. Now, if you're one of those devoted subscribers of mine who vividly remembers every video I've ever made and you're going, boo, CJ, I don't want to see any of your old crap, well, this isn't just a SuccWar Greatest Hits retrospective. In fact, I've got some new things to say, and if you're only interested in those new things, you're free to just skip to the timestamp on screen. Otherwise, without further ado, let us take a trip down memory lane. Also, thank you to Karma Weeaboo for letting me use their wonderful Morena portrait. Link in the description if you want to see more of their stuff.
Hisoka has been right under Kurapika's nose the whole time, and Kurapika still can't smell the gum. Hello, and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. I'm CJ, and today we're going to be talking about what the crap this uncharacteristically not-so-murdery murder man is doing chilling in a casino when he said he'd be killing spiders. Now, the first thing we can do to figure out what this guy's thinking is look at his own words and compare them to what he's done. After fighting Crollo, Hisoka says, "This time, I've decided to make sure it's my opponents who can't decide who it is or where they'll have to fight." He then goes on to say, "No matter where they go or whoever they're with, I won't stop until I've killed them all." Lines like these make it seem like he plans to hunt down and kill the spiders, but he never actually says that. All Hisoka really says is that he won't let his opponents choose where the fight occurs, and that he plans to kill them all. Nowhere does he say he's going to come to them. In fact, the way he's acting right now is actually more true to these words than going after them would be. See, the spiders are all spoiling for a fight. They're ready to throw down anytime, anywhere, any position. Sorry, got too caught up in Hisoka's choice of metaphor. Anyway, my point is that by denying the spiders the fight they want, Hisoka is doing exactly what he said he would, and it is genuinely a good plan. Since Hisoka's all the way up on tier 1, he's forcing the Phantom Troop to come to him, and they're getting into all sorts of trouble on the way, probably because they're all on edge and ready to go. Thinks Nobunaga and Phaeton are all mixed up with the Mafia, and the rest of the spiders are bending over backwards trying to get to tier 1. Well, except Franklin, he's just chilling. But other than that, by the time they get to him, they're going to be frustrated, worn out, and possibly even down a member or two, and these are not the conditions they'd want to fight him under. Another reason I don't think Hisoka is going to be prowling the ship in search of troop members anytime soon is the symbolism in his poker hand. Well, I say poker because that's what the manga calls it, but it really seems to be more of a variant of blackjack. Anyway, if you've seen any of my other videos, I'm sure you know that Yoshihiro Togashi loves the symbolism of the number 4. It's Hisoka's number, and in Japanese culture, it symbolizes death. Togashi often depicts Hisoka holding or wielding a number 4 card to symbolize that he's looking to spill some blood, but he's notably missing one here. To me, this suggests that Hisoka isn't experiencing the same bloodlust that he feels in moments when he's shown with the number 4 and is content to lie in wait as he's been doing. Hisoka's internal monologue in chapter 405 also contains hints about his plan. He states that he doesn't enjoy quote-unquote group play and wants to ravage a partner one-on-one. This makes me think that when he does fight the spiders, he's planning to divide them up and pick them off one at a time. It also suggests his overall plan is to kill the spiders one by one until only Crollo is left, which would just be incredibly brutal and sad. In any case, this makes me imminently afraid for Benolanov, who's watching Hisoka in disguise and is entirely by himself. Benolanov may be stealthily watching him, but we see in Greed Island that perfect Zetsu isn't enough. Hisoka always knows when he's being spied on. Additionally, Hisoka has a line about playing with himself, and this is incredibly bad news for Benolanov, who is, disguised as him. And I do think Hisoka meant that in a murder and violence way and not a
Kiss each other!
Don't think it hasn't occurred to me.
sort of way. So, what have we got on Hisoka's plan so far? Chill on tier 1 and wait for the spiders to come to him? Surely we figured it out and the video can be over, right? Yeah, no. Because this one line right here hints at something far more sinister going on. I'm just gonna say it right now. Hisoka's planning to use Kurapika to deal with the other spiders, because Hisoka doesn't care about them. He wants Chrollo, and maybe Machi a little. Anyway, Chrollo is the person he wants to face alone, so when he says that thing about how he doesn't like group play, he's still fine collaborating with people, he just prefers his fights for pleasure to be one-on-one. So we know Hisoka is on tier 1, but it goes much deeper than that. This line right here gives away something huge. Hisoka knows about the succession war. But Nolanov muses that Hisoka might have made a connection with a prince to get onto tier 1, and I think he is bang on here. That's right, he's been on tier 1 the entire time. What's more, he's either heard or seen that Halkenberg's ability is a group one, so either he's been in close proximity to it, or knows someone that has, and that means he hasn't just been hanging around on the outskirts of this conflict, he's been elbow deep in the succession war. So, if we can figure out his source of information, we might be able to divine which prince he has a connection with. Now, the problem with this is that nobody has actually seen Hisoka in any prince's rooms. Kurapika's personally been to room 1003, Benjamin's not working with any hunters, and there's no way in hell Halkenberg would hire Hisoka to protect him. I named those groups because they are the ones who should know that Halkenberg's ability is a group ability, and who could have told Hisoka if they were working together. It's also possible Hisoka could have been a guard for a different prince and was, for some reason, able to go off to the VVIP area and do his own thing, or he just ditched his post. Given that the princes who had hired hunters as bodyguards are Tyson, Luzurus, Kacho, Momose, Mariam, and Wobble, if Hisoka accepted a job as a bodyguard, then a member of Kurapika's team would have seen him and probably known who he was or mentioned him to Kurapika. So naturally, this is impossible. Or is it? What if Hisoka was in disguise? After all, if he can create prosthetic limbs with texture surprise, surely he can create a suitable disguise as well. His only real restriction would be that he couldn't change his height. As a matter of fact, when we look at it from this perspective, there is a candidate in the guards of this group of princes who does have an excuse to slip away from his duty and seems to be about as tall as Hisoka. I'm talking about Bellarinte, who is currently employed by 7th Queen Savanti to protect 13th Prince Mariam. Bellarinte certainly acts like Hisoka would if he were trying not to attract attention. He's flippant and cheerful and doesn't take anything seriously and seems to enjoy death. There's this scene during Kurapika's Nen training where Berrigan, the 13th Prince's other guard in attendance, is attacked by Silent Majority and then shot by Sakata. And when Berrigan dies, Bellarinte has this weird little moment of almost gleefully examining the corpse and taunting Sakata for shooting him, and the speech bubble ends with a heart, which happens all the time with Hisoka. The entire scene just makes me think Hisoka in disguise, honestly. There's also the fact that Bellarinte was the one who came over to Kurapika's Nen training when Bisky and Hanzo would also have been options. It's possible that Savanti was the one who made the call, as the manga leads us to believe, but I think it's equally likely that Hisoka, disguised as Bellarinte, jumped at the chance to get close to Kurapika and volunteered to go himself. After all, he knows he's being hunted by the Phantom Troop, he wants to isolate Chrollo from the others, and he and Kurapika have collaborated to fight the Phantom Troop before. As soon as he found out that Kurapika was here, I think Hisoka would immediately start scheming to form another alliance with him. He even goes out of the way to help stabilize Kurapika's position a bit. When Maur and Satobi accuse Kurapika of being the killer after the second Silent Majority attack, it's Bellarinte who stands up to defend him. So, we've got a guy who's as tall as Hisoka, can use Nen, got himself close to Kurapika, has been deep enough in the succession war that it's possible he learned about Halkenberg's ability, and acts like Hisoka. This still doesn't address the elephant in the room brought about by chapter 405. If this is Hisoka, then who the heck is this, chilling in a casino, very much out of disguise? Are there 3 Hisokas? Or if this is the man behind Bellarinte, doesn't he have a job to do? Well, yes, but his job has just been greatly limited. You see, the entirety of room 1013 has been transported to a pocket dimension that Bellarinte can no longer get back into. As such, guarding Prince Mariam is no longer part of his job. All he does now is attend Nen classes and make reports. That leaves him most of the day free to do conceivably anything. Hisoka could very well be enjoying his newfound freedom by spending time in the casino in the VVIP area or waiting for the right time to get in contact with Kurapika. So let's put this all together and see what we come up with. One unified theory of Hisoka, if you will. This is how I think Hisoka's time on the Black Whale went down. Hisoka, having spent time with the Phantom Troop over the years, likely knew that they would be boarding the ship on the lower tiers before working their way up higher, antagonizing the Mafia along the way. Appropriately, he decided to force the spiders to exhaust themselves and get into trouble chasing him down while he picked them off one by one at his convenience as they wandered into his reach. He created a disguise and signed up to guard Prince Mariam, an assignment he likely thought would be easy since he didn't know about the Succession War until it was too late. Once the Succession War got underway, Kurapika broadcasted the existence of Nen on the Tier 1's emergency channel. This alerted Hisoka that Kurapika was aboard the ship, and he began scheming to get close to Kurapika. His intention was likely to wait for the right moment to reveal himself to Kurapika and form an alliance. In my opinion, the right moment would be when multiple spiders reach Tier 1. When Prince Mariam's beast isolated room 1013 in a Nen space, Hisoka suddenly had more free time and didn't have to maintain his persona. He gambled idly in the VVIP area until he became aware of Benolanov watching him, and this is as far as the story goes. I believe that because Benolanov is alone on Tier 1, and Hisoka prefers his trysts to be between him and one other person, he will fight and kill Benolanov and have fun doing it. Once there's radio silence from Benolanov, however, this will alert Chrollo that he's likely been killed by Hisoka and convince him that Hisoka is on Tier 1, so he'll make his move to reach that tier as quickly as possible. In anticipation of Chrollo bringing the spiders to Tier 1, Hisoka will reveal himself to Kurapika and warn him that the spiders are coming. His goal will then be to form an alliance with Kurapika so that he can manipulate the situation to pick off all the other spiders and get Chrollo alone. Once he has Chrollo alone, he can have the rematch of his dreams, one-on-one, exactly how he likes it. The Phantom Troop are all living on borrowed time. Hello, and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. Today we're going to be talking about the Phantom Troop and how tremendously cooked they are. Togashi's been throwing up death flags for this group and its members left and right since this arc started, and a lot of them are in very bad positions. So, let's go through every member of the spiders and put them onto this here safety tier list. Starting with Illumi and Kaluto, I honestly think these two are going to be fine for the foreseeable future. They were last seen with Botabai and Ginta of the Zodiacs, and those two are going to do everything they can to keep tabs on the Zoldycks. Heck, they might even have just taken these two into custody, since Illumi was willing to comply with what he thought was an arrest. If that's the case, being guarded by Zodiacs is probably the safest anyone could be on this boat. Additionally, Illumi is apparently a VVIP, yet he's chosen not to chill in the VVIP area where we know Hisoka is. I'm not sure why he decided this. Maybe he's not actually looking for Hisoka at all? Topic for another video. But in any case, they're not together, and that's good for Illumi and Kaluto. And possibly most importantly of all, neither of the Zoldycks has split up. So for those reasons, we're gonna put them in the S tier. Next up, we've got Benolanov, and I honestly think the exact opposite about this man's safety. First of all, he's alone on Tier 1 with Hisoka. That right there is a terrible spot to be, especially since Benolanov knows full well that Hisoka is a terrible matchup for him. One blast of gum and he can't dance, which means he can't really use his Nen. Second of all, Hisoka always knows when people are watching him, and he's got this little line about how he wants to play with himself, making it clear he knows there's a second Hisoka. So, unless Benolanov either leaves the area, which goes against Chrollo's orders, and which Hisoka might not even let him do, or unless Benolanov receives immediate backup, Hisoka is probably going to kill him extremely soon. What's more, Hisoka isn't even the only person after Benolanov. Henry and Zakuro took a terrifyingly short amount of time to come to the conclusion that the Phantom Troop probably killed Lynch. Given a little more time, some actual investigating, and maybe some Nen abilities from other members of the GU family, who's to say they can't figure out exactly which of the spiders it was? So yeah, Benolanov really has enemies all around him. If he stays on Tier 1, he's a dead man walking, but if he heads back down to the lower tiers, he has to contend with the GU Mafia. The two things I could say in his favor are that the Mafia are largely composed of chumps compared to the Phantom Troop, and Chrollo is headed to Tier 1, but both of these are pretty flimsy. A bad matchup could still do Benolanov in, and Krollo isn't just going to have a free pass up to tier 1 like Benolanov had. With all that in mind, Benolanov is going straight to the C tier. Next is Shizuku, and if I'm being honest, Girly Pop is not thriving. First of all, she's part of Krollo's team, which probably means she's trying to get to tier 1. That puts her on the same tier as Hisoka, and like Benolanov, she has a bad matchup against him. But what's much more problematic than that is that wherever she is, Shizuku is alone. Nen battles depend almost as much on matchup as on skill, and having a partner as backup drastically reduces the chances of a bad matchup occurring. That's why being alone is the single biggest risk factor for any Nen user. What's more, Shizuku isn't even as combat-centered as most of the other Phantom Troop members. While that alone would be enough for me to condemn her to C tier, there's one more thing that makes it just a little bit worse. Shizuku's fortune, as written by Krollo, states, "Solitude should your greatest fear be, lest upon your lonesome form he creep." Now, there's a whole discussion as to whether Neon's fortunes are even valid anymore. They're supposed to expire after 1 month after all, but despite that, Shalnark's fortune came true. So who's to say Shizuku's safe from hers? There's also a line suggesting she'll die in a treasure chamber, and guess what? Krollo's going after treasure. Coincidence? Maybe, but it's something to keep in mind, and like I said, she's already been sentenced to C tier. Heading to the exact opposite part of the Black Whale, let's discuss Franklin. Now, what's the one thing I said the Phantom Troop shouldn't do? Be alone. And what's Franklin doing? Sitting by himself and eating a burger. Now, this puts him in a prime position to be picked off by Hisoka, or so I would have said if you were on a higher tier. Franklin is all the way down on tier 5, which could not be further from Hisoka, and Hisoka loves his finery. I honestly can't imagine him going down to such a dirty, dingy place. Of course, Franklin is still by himself and still has threats to contend with. For one, the Cha'ar family plan on backstabbing the spiders, but much more importantly, Franklin is in the Heili family's hunting grounds. If they were to gang up on them, he could conceivably be in trouble. Plus, even if he won a fight, he would probably cause a ton of collateral damage. That's just how his ability works after all. If he does that, he's gonna attract attention and could end up with a Zodiac or two trying to bring him down. But that's a lot of what ifs, and there are a couple points saving him from C tier. For one, Franklin is not actively antagonizing anybody like a lot of the other spiders seem to be doing. For another, Nobunaga is maybe heading over to get him, so he won't be alone for long if Nobunaga makes it. That's why I'm putting him in B tier. Next, let's talk about Finks and Phaeton. Now, on the face of it, these two look unsafe. I mean, they're on their way to kick Morena's door down. That is straight for danger. Sure, it's a fight they might win, but it's danger nonetheless. Surely they deserve to be in the B tier. Well, no. I'm actually going to make the case that Finks and Phaeton belong in the A tier. First of all, they're not alone. They seem like they'll complement each other decently well in combat, and they can share their expertise of Nen. Additionally, these are two of the most combat-oriented Phantom Troop members out there. They are absolutely built for this. I truly cannot see the Heili bringing them down if they roll up to their hideout. Now, there's one reason in particular I think they're both quite safe. Nobunaga gave them bad intel about Yokotani's ability. Yes, I think Nobunaga messing up is going to take the spiders out of danger. You see, Nobunaga told them that attacking Yokotani is what triggers his ability, but this is incorrect. Yokotani can actually trigger this ability just by introducing himself, and it works based on the crimes the targets have committed. And guess what? Unlawful entry to the Heili hideout is apparently a crime. Because of all this, ideally you'd kill him before he introduces himself. But guess what? Finks and Phaeton have decided to do the exact opposite. Their plan is to wait for the Heili to attack first. Do you see the problem with that? That will allow Yokotani to activate his ability with no interference and kick Finks and Phaeton right out of the hideout, just like they did to Nobunaga and Henry. So those two are currently set up to completely avoid the fight they're headed toward, and that's why I think they're safe. Now, you might say to this, why on earth would Togashi do the same thing twice? That would be super boring. And I answer that Togashi is the master of making things that should be super boring into very interesting character studies. Just look at Meruem and Komigi's Games of Gungi. In any author's hands, Any other author, that is, that would be a total snooze fest, but Togashi makes it work. Another counter-argument is that the Heili might opt to fight rather than try to send the spiders away peacefully, to which I reply that this is a terrible idea and they should know it. Time is on the Heili's side. The more time passes, the more levels they'll have, the stronger they'll become, and the better they'll do against the spiders. If they can directly avoid fighting multiple members of the Phantom Troop, for the time being, they will. So yeah, they are headed right for enemies, so I can't put them in S tier, but I honestly think Finks and Phaeton are solidly in A at the moment. Now, Machi is the spider we know least about. Togashi, I am dying for an update on what baby girl could have possibly been doing this whole time. We know 2 things about her activity on the Black Whale. 1, she is by herself. 2, she is in a standard passenger cabin on Tier 5. Now, we can't be sure, but her location being a standard cabin while everyone else is out and about seems to imply that for the time being, she is chilling and away from any action. Given that, her situation is probably about the same as Franklin's, so until we learn more, I'll give her a shaky slot in the B tier. Our penultimate member to talk about is my penultimate favorite spider, Nobunaga. Once again, we have a guy who's committed the cardinal sin of the spiders this arc, going off by himself. Now, at least Nobunaga is on the lower tiers and nowhere near Hisoka, but I would argue he's in the most danger from the Heili out of anyone. First of all, he, like Finks and Phaeton, is heading right for them to pick a fight. Second of all, they've seen how he fights. He's lost the element of surprise, and he is the most appealing target for them to pursue right now. Third of all, he's sort of disarmed. I mean, yes, he has a sword, but according to Phaeton, it's a makeshift fake sword, which does not sound promising with regards to its combat effectiveness. So, essentially, he's plunging right into danger against opponents who know more about him than he knows about them, by himself, with a fake sword. That just sounds incredibly stupid to me. The one saving grace I can give this guy is that he might be headed back to pick up Franklin first, and them teaming up would certainly improve both their odds of survival, but even so, with what we know about Nobunaga, I'm gonna have to put him in C tier. Last but certainly not least, we've got this handsome lad right here. No, ew, not that picture. Use a different one. Okay, that's better. Sorry. Chrollo is in much the same position as Shizuku. Alone, headed for Tier 1, surrounded by death flags, and not ready to fight Hisoka. However, there are a couple things that, for me, give Chrollo better odds of survival. For one, Chrollo is Chrollo. He's much more combat-oriented than Shizuku, and much smarter than this girl who I'm convinced has rocks where her brain should be. He doesn't like having a margin of error, so when he says he's not ready to fight Hisoka, he doesn't mean he'll lose. He's just not 100% sure he'll win, and he wants to be before the fight. For another, Twink Jesus here has his eyes on a prize to get him ready to fight Hisoka. If that were all there was to consider, I might put him in the A tier, but Chrollo does not belong there. This man is ready to throw his life away. He is unraveling. When Togashi draws panels like this, it's never a good sign for any character. Losing one more comrade, like, say, Banolanov, could be what sends him over the edge. Also, he is very much wandering into Hisoka's territory. Tier 1 is significantly smaller than the other tiers, and there's every possibility that he could just run into Hisoka by chance and get killed. So yeah, if this was anyone but Chrollo, they'd be going in the C tier, but Chrollo simply has that dog in him, so I'm gonna have to lay him to rest in the B tier. Anyway, all that said and done, here's the final list. I'm sure many of you disagree or have thoughts, because Hunter x Hunter is far too complicated a series for anyone to agree on anything, and that's the way I like it. What if the Nen Gods gave Chrollo a funky little highlighter? Hello everyone, and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. My name is CJ, and today we're going to be discussing the most attractive man in Hunter x Hunter, Chrollo Lucifer. Or at least, I wish we were going to be discussing how hot he is, but we're actually going to be taking a look at this book of his, specifically how it could get better. You see, Chrollo is currently on the hunt for a national treasure of Kakien in order to upgrade Skill Hunter to hold a specific kind of ability that he can't currently make use of. So let's dive into the different kinds of upgrades he could be searching for. I want to start off by saying that depending on the translation you read, it's not actually clear whether or not Skill Hunter's current version can capture the ability Krollo is looking for. No hate to Lillian Olson, Hunter x Hunter is extremely difficult to translate weekly, but I feel the official translation isn't much more reliable than some of the scans I've been reading, so it is important to talk about. Anyway, in the official translation, Krollo implies Skill Hunter can't currently hold the ability he wants, but in the Togashi's troop translation, he just says, before the usual activation conditions, I need to steal a national treasure. In my opinion, it's more likely that this is a case similar to Sun and Moon. Because Sun and Moon requires 2 hands, Krollo had to evolve Skill Hunter once in order to wield it, since before that, he needed to hold the book open with 1 hand. The upgrade in question ended up being a bookmark, and my guess is that his upgrade here might be some other book functionality like that. Now, it could be as simple as a second bookmark that does the same thing, but I'm inclined to think that Togashi wouldn't do the exact same thing twice. So let's consider what kind of problem with Skill Hunter Krollo could be trying to solve to begin with. The simplest answer is that Krollo, he might just want another bookmark in order to use multiple abilities at once. After all, the plan he used on Hisoka the first time required a hefty combination of abilities, and he can't repeat that strategy. Whatever plan Krollo's going for now is his second choice. Maybe it needs 3 abilities at once, aside from Sun and Moon, which I'd like to remind you, remain active even when the book is closed. So, here's a spicy way for him to do something like that without just getting another bookmark. What if Krollo had a highlighter or a pen? He could use them to highlight, circle, or underline part of an ability in his book to keep it active all the time. Maybe it doesn't let him maintain the whole third ability, but he can focus its effects on one specific part of it with the pen/highlighter. This could let him execute an elaborate combo against Hisoka that he currently can't perform, and it would fit the theming of having a book. However, it's also possible that the problem Krollo is trying to solve is the ease of ability stealing. Currently, Krollo has a crap ton of conditions to meet in order to steal an ability. As we saw in his fight with Silva and Zeno, this makes it pretty much impossible to do mid-combat. However, what if he didn't have to meet all those pesky conditions? Krollo might just be able to steal bungee gum from right under Hisoka's nose and disarm the mad magician. In his last fight with Krollo, Hisoka was using bungee gum left and right, and he really wouldn't have gotten very far without it. It's possible the ideal partner Krollo is looking for has some ability that would allow Krollo to steal bungee gum, but that partner could also be Hisoka. So here's an idea for an upgrade that would make stealing an ability easier. Krollo gets a pencil, and he can use that pencil to write in his book. If his writing accurately describes an ability, then as soon as he sees that ability, he temporarily steals it. However, as soon as he steals it, a conjured eraser starts erasing his writing, and he has until it's all erased to use the ability. This could make for a shocking coup de grace against Hisoka. He goes to use his gum, only to find that Krollo has stolen it, and uses it himself to help deliver the finishing blow. It's an idea that I think goes pretty hard, but unfortunately I don't think it's gonna happen. See, the way Krollo talks about this ability he's looking for, he makes it sound like a more permanent solution. Stealing Hisoka's gum is more of a defensive measure than an offensive one, and I can't help but think that Krollo is after an ability that kills its target super dead. Also, in this scene, Krollo talks about running the risk of encountering Hisoka, which would be kind of a weird thing to say for someone who's actively tracking him. Again, not impossible, Togashi has been known to do a bit of the old wordplay, but still highly doubtful. So what else could it be? Okay, maybe Krollo isn't stealing bungee gum, but I think I kinda cooked with the pencil idea. And maybe seeing the ability in action isn't gonna be the one condition he still has to meet. It could be something else entirely, like asking questions and having them answered, or touching the book. Where I'm going with this is that Krollo might need to loosen the restrictions if he wants to steal an exceptionally lethal ability, one that kills anyone who sees it. It's not out of the question, after all. Only one person can see Silent Majority's doll, so we have precedent for these vision shenanigans with Nen. Maybe it's some kind of curse, and only the person it kills can see it. That would potentially make it impossible for Krollo to technically witness the ability in action. Okay, maybe seeing the victim die still counts, then I'll up the ante. What if it's an ability that, like Nove's hide and seek, creates a pocket dimension, and the only people to enter that pocket dimension are then killed by it? Or what if it's an ability that completely erases someone from existence and memory, making it impossible for Chrollo to observe and remember it? We can apply this to other conditions too. What if the ability makes it so its user destroys anything their hand touches? Then Chrollo wouldn't be able to make them touch the book. I mean, he could, but it probably wouldn't count. Or what if the ability forbids the user from answering questions? Look, the point is, Chrollo might need to loosen the conditions on his ability because otherwise, it is literally impossible for him to meet all the conditions to steal what he wants without dying. So, in order to do that, he has to upgrade the whole of Skill Hunter so it's easier to get abilities in the first place, etc., etc. Another idea along this line is that the upgrade might simply be more pages. Chrollo has had a very prolific career as a thief and an end user, and stolen countless abilities throughout that time which are taking up space in his book. It's entirely possible the guy is simply out of room, and completing this heist will add more blank pages. It could also be that the ability he's after is going to add some serious walls of text to his book. I mean, try explaining Contagion or Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in a timely fashion. What if he's after a similarly complicated ability and needs the extra space? All that said, I think the true most likely answer is that Chrollo simply can't activate the ability with Skill Hunter as it exists. For example, what if, and this is wishful thinking, Chrollo has to be naked when he activates it, and having a book on his person violates that rule? Okay, it's probably not that, but given that Chrollo wants to use this ability to completely erase Hisoka, there's a high likelihood that it is incredibly destructive. If there's a risk of it destroying the book before it destroys Hisoka, then it could shut down and be useless in combat. Maybe the upgrade will be sheath protectors that spare the book from harm. Okay, we've gotten a little off track, and that's not exactly what I was trying to say just now anyway. This last example is, I think, the best illustration of what I was going for, and also just a winner of a theory in general. What if Chrollo is looking for an ability that requires him to be in Zetsu to activate? See, Zetsu involves closing off the body's aura nodes. As we saw with Theta's training of Terror Sandwich, entering Zetsu causes conjured objects to disappear. Thus, if Chrollo were to steal an ability that required him to use Zetsu, the book would disappear as soon as he entered that state. And if the book is gone, Chrollo can't use the ability, making it essentially unusable for him even if he successfully steals the Hatsu. Hear me out. What if Chrollo gets a bookmark? A different one. His second bookmark, instead of allowing him to use abilities when the book isn't open to that page, could save his place and stop the book from dematerializing when he enters Zetsu. There's precedent for this already. Some Nen abilities only work when the user is in Zetsu, despite this being a seeming contradiction. And speak of the devil, we have a solid pair right here to choose from. Chrollo could be going after the ability of either Camilla or Terror Sandwich. Both are good bets. Terror Sandwich's ability is essentially an instant kill against anyone who doesn't know about it as far as we know. But, all things considered, I'm leaning towards Cat Who Lived a Million Lives. Firstly, Camilla is dead set on staying in Zetsu and using her own ability and not making use of her guardian spirit beast. If she were to lose this ability, however, that would give Togashi an excuse to show off Camilla's guardian spirit beast. Secondly, this ability is certain death for anyone who kills its user before reviving said user with the victim's life force. This is exactly the type of ability Chrollo would want. It hardly requires any strategy to use, it just gets results. Now, you may ask, why would Chrollo, the renowned strategist, want an ability that doesn't require strategy? Because he's a sad boy, that's why. This man is drowning in an ocean of grief, and part of him wants to throw his life away against Hisoka. An ability where all he has to do is get killed would allow him to completely give in to those emotions that are threatening to overwhelm him and literally die to kill Hisoka. It suits his emotional state perfectly and would accomplish his goal flawlessly. Now, I'm gonna cap off this video with a little prediction. I expect it to go something like this. Chrollo gets Camilla's ability, and after a lengthy battle with Hisoka, allows himself to be killed in Zetsu to activate it. Hisoka sees the Nen beast appear before him, and quickly surmises its function. However, knowing he's a dead man, and in order to deny Chrollo that last bit of satisfaction, Hisoka kills himself. Thus, the cat has no life to steal, and Chrollo remains dead, making it a double suicide. I think this would be a perfect way for Chrollo to go out, and it would be really emblematic of his story and character as a whole.
Kaluto Zoldyck has a parasocial relationship with his own brother. Hello and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. My name is CJ, and I want to talk about all the overall weirdness surrounding Kaluto Zoldyck of the Phantom Troop. Because seriously, nothing about this goober adds up. Kaluto is a character that can very easily fade into the background of Hunter x Hunter. It's quite common for people to just never think about them that much, and I confess that I made the same mistake when I first read it. But as soon as you start paying any attention to them, you go, hey, wait a minute, what the hell is this person doing? And also, what's with all these completely random ass facts we know about them that don't seem to add up into any coherent story whatsoever? Side note, given that a bunch of different characters have referred to Kaluto with conflicting genderization, I thought genderization wasn't a word, I just made it up, but my Google Doc didn't underline it red, so I guess it is. Anyway, point is, until the manga gives us more info, I'll refer to them however I like at any given time because no one can stop me. As I was saying, Kaluto's position within the Zoldyck family, though never spelled out, can be pretty easily inferred via context clues. Kaluto's doted on by their mother, but the Zoldicks are a pretty patriarchal family, and Kikyo doesn't have a lot of power in it, at least not compared to Silva, who pretty clearly establishes himself as the executive decision maker at the end of the Hunter exam arc. Thus, Kaluto being mom's favorite is pretty meaningless in the grand scheme of things. The family has already decided that Killua is their prized child, the heir, the favorite, leaving Kaluto in the dust, which might I add is incredibly unfair because this kid is insanely talented. Here's a reminder that Killua learned Nen at age 12 and learned Ahatsu at age 13. Kaluto, meanwhile, out-stealthed several members of the Phantom Troop, displays multiple complicated Hatsus at age 11, showcasing exceptional talent. Wait, what the fuck? Why does Kaluto Zoldyck know Nen? Okay, so this could just be a plot hole, as many people have said, and it might have been at the time Togashi wrote it. However, Togashi is a master of coming up with retroactive explanations that make things fall into place most of the time. Ergo, I think we can assume that regardless of whether or not there was an explanation for this when Togashi wrote it, there sure as heck is now. A common hypothesis I see is that Kaluto was more obedient than Killua, and thus was taught Nen, while Killua wasn't because learning Nen would allow him to actually rebel against his family. However, this explanation doesn't sit well with me because of this panel right here. After using Ko on Zazan, Phaeton gets got by some weak aura. Kaluto is confused and needs this explained to her by Finks. This means that, despite having 3 full-blown Nen abilities, Kaluto is unfamiliar with basic applications and principles of Nen and how they affect combat. Bisky's training shows us that it's important to learn these before fully developing Nen abilities because they can go on to inform and augment the types of abilities you come up with. In other words, Kaluto clearly has not received classical and proper Nen training. That leaves us with 2 possibilities. Kaluto either wasn't trained by the Zoldyck family, or the Zoldyck family are terrible at teaching Nen. Something tells me it's not the latter. So where the hell did Kaluto get these abilities? Well, due to their nature, I'm going to posit that Kaluto's Nen abilities were actually subconsciously developed due to the kid's incredible talent, a la Neon Nostrad or Terror Sandwich. Let's do some psychoanalysis here. See, I think Kaluto's abilities perfectly represent his feelings about his family, which, oh my goodness, I completely forgot to continue addressing that because I got sidetracked by the Kaluto has Nen bit. Let's pull that chart back up, yeah? According to it, Kaluto is envious of Aluka, which is really such a random-ass piece of information to throw in. Why would you envy a genie-possessed iPad kid locked in a basement? Aluka really gets the short end of the stick from everyone except Killua. Aha! Kaluto wants to be buddies with Killua. Why? Well, neglect and conditioning, probably. Even the one parent, who's always paying attention to Kaluto, is also always screaming about how Killua is the greatest and Killua is the future of the family, so on and so forth. Kaluto's a bit envious of that kind of attention, but I do think it's more than that. A lot of people assume the brother Kaluto wants to get back is Killua, and I do agree with that, but they say that it's because she's fixated on Killua in order to prove her worth to the family by returning the golden goose. However, I disagree. Far more logical outcomes of a situation like this, I think, would be that with Killua's departure, Kaluto hopes he never returns, so she can finally take the spotlight and show off her amazing talent. Kaluto should feel resentment toward Killua, not adoration, not a desire to be friends. And yet, being envious of Aluka shows it's not their family's approval Kaluto is after. It's Killua's specifically. I'm going to propose a rather optimistic theory now. I know, very out of character for me. I think that Kaluto was always a little envious of Killua, yes, but not because he commanded the family's respect. I think it was the opposite. Killua has always had a certain level of defiance toward the family that no one else displayed. In the isolated environment of Kukuru Mountain, there is only one voice who dares criticize the Zoldyck family, and it is Killua's. Consider Kaluto's position. They're the weakest person in the Zoldyck family in terms of power, status, and sway, an extra youngest child that can be discarded at a moment's notice. And they just don't have the same courage as Killua, nor could they get away with the same shit because the family doesn't need them as much. Killua criticizes and defies the family and gets his ass beat for it. Kaluto knows they would get their ass beat way harder and fold under the pressure way faster. But even so, I think they looked up to Killua and wished they could have his courage and defy the family. They wanted to be friends with Killua and join the problem children club in the Zoldyck household, so to speak. And think about it, they joined the Phantom Troop, the one group that Silva specifically went out of the way to tell his kids not to fuck with. There's no way in a million years the family would condone that, and what more proof do you need that Kaluto is simply not on board with the Zoldyck family's whole thing? And no, this is not some kind of secret Zoldyck family plan as people have suspected, because again, Silva is very clear, you do not get mixed up with the Phantom Troop. So yes, I think Kaluto slipped away from Illumi after Illumi pretended to be Hisoka in York New City, and Kaluto then asked to join the Spiders. And showing off their Nen, the Spiders were like, yeah, sure, why not? Because they had vacancies and don't accept rookies. Oh right, Nen. We got here because I was talking about Kaluto's Nen. Okay, so Kikyo Zoldyck uses a fan just like Kaluto, and it's logical to assume that Kaluto learned to use the fan as a weapon from her. Kikyo is one of the few other people in the family Kaluto has some level of care for, so this probably was a prized possession of theirs. And we know that manipulators work best with objects they have a strong affinity for, and Kaluto uses the fan in conjunction with paper for their manipulation abilities. I think Kaluto could have easily awakened his Nen by accident through strong feelings attached to this fan, and thus developed the Nen abilities we see him use later on. These Nen abilities also, I believe, reflect Kaluto's personality and desire. First of all, Kaluto's paper dolls let him keep tabs on people, and a tracking ability makes sense when his mission is to get somebody back. But more importantly, I think, Kaluto has a certain sense of FOMO, fear of missing out. Since Aluko is the one who got all of Killua's attention and care, not Kaluto, and Kaluto doesn't know how to make themselves included, the best they can do is eavesdrop with an ability like this. This allows them at least some semblance of being part of the group, and is also just really sad to think about. Kaluto's Confetti Wind and this ability, which was officially translated as Dance of the Serpent's Bite, but based on the kanji used I prefer to call Zigzagging Snake Dance, also represents how they want to grow and change. Side note, I kvetch about the official translation a lot. This is not me doing so again. Dance of the Serpent's Bite is a fine translation. I'm just personally of the opinion, with my interpretation of this character, that a name like Zigzagging Snake Dance is more befitting of a sinister yet goofy child. Like no 11-year-old is gonna call this ability Dance of the Serpent's Bite. If I wanted to really be realistic, I'd call it Skibbity Snake Riz or something, but unfortunately, there is no kanji for Skibbity yet. Anyway, Kaluto effectively accumulates tiny, insignificant bits of paper and batters a target with them doing nothing. But as more and more accumulate, well, surprise, it does something, alright? This, I believe, represents how Kaluto wants to go from an insignificant and overlooked scrap to a dignified, refined creature like a great serpent, imposing, slithering where they please, and dancing their way through anyone who would stop them. I also want to note, both of these are clunky Nen abilities and not exactly super well designed. Generally speaking, they're only effective because of Kaluto's relatively incredible proficiency with Nen and immaculate stealth skills. That, again, is why I believe these abilities were developed subconsciously or, at the very least, with very little actual practical education in Nen. They're the types of abilities a kid would come up with on his own, with no help from anybody who has Nen experience. Okay, to be honest, all that interpreting about Kaluto's character took way longer than expected. So let's get into the actual theory, and we're gonna find out just how short I can make this because we do not have much time. Okay, so we've established that Kaluto wants to be pals with Killua. That begs the question, why join the Phantom Troop? How exactly is that going to get Killua back? Oh, by the way, in case it wasn't obvious, I think by get my brother back, Kaluto means restore a relationship with him, not return him to the Zoldyck household. So look, Kaluto made this decision because, to answer the question asked by the thumbnail, yes, Kaluto is stupid, as if this wasn't obvious from Kaluto wanting to stare at the full concentrated power of the sun just to see what happens.
Damn it! I wanna see!
Kaluto probably doesn't know much about the whole York New situation. I assume they just heard the chatter from Illumi or whoever else that Killua was mixed up with the Phantom Troop and an ally of the Chain User in his crazy revenge quest. Therefore, Kaluto reasons, by sticking with the Phantom Troop, Kaluto will find her brother again. However, Kaluto also has the goal of becoming the top dog in the Spiders and leading the Phantom Troop, so why is that exactly? What on earth could that possibly have to do with getting any brother back? Remember, Kaluto is at this point 11 years old. So my shot in the dark with all this is that Kaluto came up with the most 11-year-old ass plan conceivable. Just going to find Killua isn't enough. Remember, Kaluto doesn't just want to meet him. They want to win his respect. The little dude thinks they can take control of the Phantom Troop, impress Killua with how badass they are, and order the members of the Spiders around to resolve whatever feud the Chain User has with them, because it surely can't be that bad, right? After all, Kaluto's from a household where the whole business is murder. It's clear that at young ages, the Zoldycks don't understand just what murder means to the average person, and being around the Phantom Troop is not exactly correcting Kaluto's misapprehensions. So, you know, it's a very naive plan that presupposes many things. That their talent will make it possible, that they can resolve everything by being the center of the universe because they're awesome, and that Kurapika and Killua will still be actively hunting down the Phantom Troop. I mean, as a child, who hasn't made all these mistakes? It's very common for children to assume that the status quo is forever, to set massively unrealistic expectations for themselves, and to gravely overestimate their own importance in the world. Like I said, 11-year-old ass plan. But it's kind of the only one I can come up with that explains Kaluto's behavior throughout Hunter x Hunter. And doesn't seem to be working out for them. At this point, I think they're sticking with the Phantom Troop because of the sunk cost fallacy. Because surely, at some point, eventually where the Spiders go, Killua will be, right? Right?
First Prince Benjamin just needs to capture 4 more princes before he can begin his reign of terror. Hello and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. My name is CJ and I have a confession to make. I half-assed my last chapter review. That's right, I did not do the martial law chapter justice because if I had, it could have easily made for twice as long a video and I was trying to make it to my shift on time. So, consider this part 2 of my chapter review, only with proper editing and such, as we dive into one of the central questions raised by chapter 410. What is the status of every prince? Right off the bat, Benjamin says that there are 4 princes to go, and he identifies 2 of them as Zhonglei and Lucerys. Now, you might be fooled into taking this statement to mean that Benjamin has killed all but 4 princes, but there is absolutely no way that is true. It's almost certain that Benjamin has merely detained the princes in question. You see, Benjamin may have invoked martial law, but until he has every single prince in one spot, executing them is a very risky move. Once the executions begin, it'll spook the other princes into playing all their cards, as well as make it that much harder to deal with the Justice Bureau and draw the ire of the Zodiacs. If Benjamin is going to pull this off, he needs to kill all the princes at the same time. By the way, given the nature of some of the princes and their abilities, I do not think this is happening, and it makes me think that Benjamin is completely 100% cooked. So, because of that, and because of what we know about who Benjamin believes is alive and so on and so forth, we can determine that the number of princes he has detained is 5. With that being said, let's go through them and talk about their statuses. Second Prince Camilla is 100% guaranteed to be detained. For starters, let's make it clear without a shadow of a doubt. Benjamin's words here state that the only upper princes unaccounted for are Zhonglei and Lucerys. That means the other 2 unaccounted for princes have to be among Halkenberg, Kacho, Fugetsu, Mariam, and Wobble, and Camilla is notably not one of those. Now, CJ, you might say, why on earth would you mention Kacho, and doesn't Benjamin think Halkenberg is dead? To both of these, I say, maybe, but we're talking about Camilla right now, and I'll get back to those 2 later. The bottom line is, by this logic, Camilla must be detained, and although this hurts her pride, she should be content to be so. You see, Camilla's counteractive Hatsu is going to make her difficult to summarily execute, even if they have an idea of how it works. Additionally, although she doesn't know it, her best play might be to sit and wait. You see, according to chapter 389, Camilla was able to give her have-not soldiers the same quote-unquote status and rights as the armed forces. This implies she has some sort of military sway. Now, it's not exactly clear what this means, but there is a distinct possibility that if Benjamin and his captain, Balsamilco, were to perish due to some virus-related shenanigans, Camilla might end up being put in charge of the military, seeing as she's the second oldest child and has her own private army with the same status as the public army anyway. If this is indeed the case, then her advisors have almost certainly advised her to do this, and given how last time went, she might actually listen to them this time. That said, they don't actually know that Benjamin is on a timer, so they're probably scheming for a way to get Benjamin killed and transfer power to Camilla, which is very bad for her. Camilla's odds go down significantly when she's the one making the first move, as we saw from her attempt on Benjamin's life. Moving on, third Prince Zhonglei has been confirmed as one of the escapees, and honestly, this guy might have just gone out of the frying pan and into the fire. In Benjamin's clutches, at the very least, Zhonglei doesn't have to worry about execution until Benjamin can secure the rest of the princes or his timer runs out, and I truly believe that securing the rest of the princes is not going to happen. However, he has just absconded to Tier 2, which brings him closer to the hideout of the Hale Li family. Furthermore, he is likely in hiding with the Jiyu family, who are the targets of 3 freshly powered up Hale Li members. Even worse, he doesn't know Nen, and his Nen beast doesn't exactly seem like the combative sort. So all things considered, I think Zhonglei is going to get killed by the Hale Li family rather quickly. At this point, the only hope for Zhonglei is to wait out Benjamin's timer, to have Camilla somehow not assume control of the military after that, and probably to team up with the other princes who are on the run. If he can't manage to clear all 3 of these conditions, then Zhonglei could very well end up being a delicious 50-point meal for Morena's faction. I have no doubt in my mind that 4th Prince Terror Sandwich is relaxing in his quarters without a care in the world. He is completely laser focused on developing his Nen, and I truly do not believe even martial law would snap him out of it. Besides, with his ability, Parallel Future, he could very easily fake his death in a convincing manner while he goes off to hide somewhere, free to keep on learning Nen in the privacy of wherever, since nobody will be looking for him. Thanks to that ability and the rate at which he's growing, I can honestly say that Terror Sandwich has nothing to fear. Maybe he'll use that time to actually do something cool, and if whatever he does is cool enough to win my respect, I might even consider calling him by his proper name. But today is not that day, so let's move on from Terror Sandwich. 5th Prince Tebepa is honestly in big trouble. She is definitely restrained, and as far as we know, she only has 2 guards who can use Nen in her midst. One of them has a non-combative based contract ability, and the other one only learned Nen a few days ago. If Prince Benjamin gets antsy and starts pulling the trigger on executions, which I could very well see him doing if the clock starts ticking down far enough, Tebepa really doesn't have a way to defend herself here. All I could think of is her alliance with Kurapika somehow coming in clutch to save her, but Kurapika probably won't get a chance to help her out. As such, in order to get Tebepa to a safe place, she has to pull something crazy out of her ass, or someone else has to make a move against the military that she can get in on. But without that, she's looking pretty cooked. Now, as far as 6th Prince Tyson goes, it looks about the same on paper as Tebepa, but I would say she's actually in a much better position. You see, Tyson has Nen users on her side, sure, but they are a pair of pro hunters. I also can't really see Tyson trying to escape given her nature, so I believe she's going to stay right where she is. If the Royal Army wants to execute her, well, they can try. This dude taught Kurapika how to use Nen, and we all know how insanely formidable Kurapika is. So yeah, I think Tyson is pretty solidly confined for the time being. Now, Lucerus is also missing, and I'm gonna be honest, I think he's dead and his body just hasn't been found. Kaiser, Melody, and Cacho Beast were all planning on killing him the previous night, and given that there's a strong possibility Halkenberg possessed one of Lucerus's guards, they might not have been the only ones gunning for him. This theory is something I'll talk about in the Halkenberg video I'm cooking up for some undefined point in the future, but the TLDR is that this dude right here is probably possessed by one of Halkenberg's men. The main reason I think he's dead, though, is because of Zhonglei. Benjamin was able to confirm that Zhonglei retreated to the Jiyu hideout. Logically, Lucerus would retreat to the hideout of the Cha'ar, but we got no such confirmation. The one really sinister thought I have about Lucerus is that his corpse is probably inside Fugetsu's tunnel. Now, it's implied other people can't travel through it, but really, does a corpse count as a person? Togashi has already explored that idea during this arc with the Chrollo vs Hisoka fight. I also think it's entirely possible that Fugetsu and co. killed Lucerus and stashed his corpse in the tunnel to hide the evidence, which would really just be so morbid and symbolize a serious corruption for Fug. I mean, this tunnel symbolizes the innocence of childhood. It's the one she and Cacho played in as kids after all. Stashing the corpse of the brother she murdered in there would just... How do I put this in a way that sounds smart and literary? It would go hard as fuck. Oh, and that would also be a very Togashi thing to do. So yeah, sorry to all 7 of the Loserous fans out there, your boy is probably dead. 9th Prince Hulkenberg is also in an interesting situation. Even though Benjamin allegedly thinks he's dead, I believe there's a very compelling possibility that Benjamin has realized he's alive. After all, Balsamikenberg seems to have poisoned Benjamin. It's entirely possible that in the course of that scuffle, Benjamin uncovered the fact that Hulkenberg can swap bodies and now suspects he's on the run somewhere. So, as far as the 2 lower-ranked princes Benjamin is still looking for, Hulk could easily be one. Now, the question would be, where is Hulk's consciousness, if not Benjamin or Balsamico? And to that, I have a few ideas, but this video is going to be long enough as is, and Hulk will be getting his own video soon anyway. Bottom line is, if Benjamin knows the truth, Hulk could be one of the princes that Benjamin is referring to who is on the lam. Another possibility in that regard is Cacho. Now, we, the audience, know Cacho is dead, and since Cacho Beast has been laying low, everyone else thinks she's dead too, right? Well, maybe not. Never forget that Benjamin had a private guard in every room. If Cacho Beast was involved in the assassination of Prince Loserous, the private guard in that room, Conjidol, could have easily witnessed her and reported it to Benjamin. Since Cacho Beast seems to be able to teleport, appear, and disappear at will, she may very well also be one of the princes that Benjamin considers on the run, since he would then believe that Cacho is alive. An obvious candidate for being on the run, then, is also Fugetsu. But hot take here, I don't actually think she's one of them. If Foog is on the run, that starts a chase, one that Foog will become exhausted by and eventually lose. Foog's faction should want to avoid starting that chase for as long as possible. Therefore, if Benjamin hasn't started executing princes yet, Fugetsu has no reason to go on the run. It would be, as the saying goes, jumping the gun. Therefore, I'm gonna bet that until she has a pressing need to, Foog's just gonna chill in wherever she's been confined to after her arrest and dip when things start to look bad. 13th Prince Mariam is, I am convinced, almost certainly one of the princes who is on the run. This boy and his associates are in a pocket dimension. That is an extremely high-level Nen ability that, I'm gonna be honest, I doubt Benjamin's people have any real way to deal with. So, unless this guy right here, whose name we don't know, found a way to disable Mariam's beast without Bisky or Hanzo stopping him, which I cannot stress enough is unlikely enough to be called pure fanfiction, Prince Mariam remains safe and secure in his pocket dimension. And lastly, we come to Prince Wobble. Now, as much as I want to say Kurapika's crew are on the run with Wobble somewhere, because that would be cool as hell, I just can't justify it. Nobody has an ability that could get them out of there, unless it's Wobble's guardian spirit beast. I'll concede this could be possible if my theory about Fugetsu is right and my theories about Cacho and Hulk are wrong, but I think the odds are slim, especially since it would feel very similar to both Mariam and Foog's beast, and Togashi seems to be making every beast at least a little bit different. That said, it is possible that Wobble's beast awakened, so we can't just rule it out for certain, but that's speculation, and it's much wilder speculation than any of my ideas for the other princes required. We have no actual reason to believe that of all the things it could possibly be, Wobble's beast has the right ability to get them out of there, much less that it awakened now of all times. So, in all likelihood, Oito and Wobble have been detained.
Dump your Fugetsu stocks and invest in Benji Coin today. Hello and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. My name is CJ, and today I want to talk about which princes I think are most likely to survive the succession war by putting them onto this tier list here. Don't worry about the tier names, just know that higher up is better. By the way, this isn't about who's gonna win, mind you, just survive, because those are very different things. First of all, I'm convinced it is possible for a king to be crowned without everybody dying based on Nasabi's explanation that interpreting the sole survivor definition is up to the princes. And second of all, quite frankly, it's anyone's game at this point. So let's dive into which princes I think will survive the war and which ones are guillotine food. Side note, I just want to clarify, I'm not asking who's going to survive the voyage, but specifically just the succession contest, because I think the contest will end well before the voyage ends, and a lot of people who survive the contest will end up getting killed shortly after by everything else going to shit on the Black Whale. First Prince Benjamin is 100% not gonna make it, and believe it or not, this has nothing to do with the fact that he's currently poisoned and dying. See, there are all sorts of ways he could survive. His Nen beast, an agreement with Tebepa to have her beast produce a cure, or any other number of unknown beast abilities could theoretically save him, or just Nen abilities in general. However, the real reason I think he's screwed is because he wants to kill everybody. Put simply, I think Kurapika is going to stop at nothing to ensure Wobble survives, and I think Wobble will survive. Therefore, any prince who's gonna insist on killing Wobble will have to go down. Now, this isn't an automatic death sentence, because like I said in my Camilla video, I could see Kurapika forcing some of these more murderous princes into a position where they have to accept a judgment chain on their heart that forces them to spare Wobble in exchange for becoming king. However, I don't see this happening with Benjamin Tenjamin here. See, in principle, Benjamin theoretically has the country's best interests at heart and will spare the baby if it's good for the country. However, Benjamin's fatal flaws are threefold: temper, impulsiveness, and pride. He hates his siblings and genuinely wants them all wiped out. He jumps right to murdering everybody as his preferred course of action, and he truly believes he is better than all the other princes. These negative qualities would have totally fucked him over a long time ago, if not for his right-hand man Balsamico Might. Because Ben's biggest redeeming quality is that he can be talked out of doing stupid shit by people he respects and cares about, he did have a shot before Balsamico died. However, neither of those things apply to Kurapika. Benjamin is wired for violence, has been pushed into a corner, lost the most important person to him, has nobody left to give him the same kind of quality advice as Balsamico, and is just generally pissed at everything and everyone. He will not make good decisions, you can count on that, and is in such a state that I genuinely think he would sooner burn the whole black whale to the ground than spare a single one of his siblings. Therefore, he goes in this tier. Second Prince Camilla might seem like she's in the same boat as Benjamin at first glance, what with her determination to absolutely murderize all her siblings. However, as I've already explored in this video, link in the description, I do not think she has Benjamin's resolve. If Kurapika forces her to make a deal or die, she will fold like wet cardboard. To me, this line about wanting to change the world is a red flag, because as we all know, so yeah, Cammy's going in this tier. If you want to see me dive more into why, like I said, watch the other video, because this one's gonna be long enough as it is. So Zhonglei, on the other hand, is probably fucked, but that's nothing. That's nothing. Why did I say that? Anyway, he doesn't have the death flag of being a merciless tyrant like Benjamin, and I think he would allow any prince who recognized him as king to survive his rule. However, he has fled to the Zhiyu family's hideout. The Zhiyu family are not a good place to be right now. They're currently at war with the Hail Li, and with 3 of their freshly powered up members seeking to kill the underboss, they might soon be enemies of the Cha'ar and the Phantom Troop, and now that special martial law has begun and they're harboring Zhonglei, they're gonna be enemies of the Royal Army and every other prince, and oh my god, Zhonglei is such a delicious little pint-sized 50-point snack, so yeah, watch out for that. He's probably gonna be the first prince to get killed by the Hail Li. Anyway, worst of all, his guardian spirit beast doesn't seem that helpful. Honestly, I think escaping to the Zhiyu might have been a bad move for Zhonglei, because if he's in with the mafia, the soldiers have every justification to shoot first and ask questions later, while if he stayed in his room, Benjamin couldn't execute him until his martial law was legitimized in the Justice Bureau, which might not even happen. Fourth Prince Terra Sandwich, derp, he's in the exact same boat as Benjamin. Like seriously, if I'd say there's a 1 in a million chance of Benjamin letting Wobble live, there's a 0 in a million chance that the same applies to Terra Sandwich. Fifth Prince Tebepa, on the other hand, is a different story. Believe it or not, she's actually my current #1 pick to become king. See, sure, she wants to kill the 4 upper princes, but I think that's doable. Not that she'll be the one to kill them, because she's a bit impotent, but like, look at these princes' placements on my list. Yeah, she won't have to do much, they're already kind of fucked for other reasons. Plus, she has an alliance with Kurapika that could come in clutch to save her, and her Nen Beast might actually buy her some time if she manages to make a cure for Benjamin's poison. Also, she's cautious and restrained enough that if she had to choose between becoming king and surviving, I think she would choose surviving as long as none of her 4 oldest siblings are the ones that become king. Ergo, Kurapika can probably work with her in both the short term and long term, and working with Kurapika is pretty much the best chance she or anyone has at surviving this conflict. 6th Prince Tyson might at first glance look like a goner. However, she has 2 secret weapons that I think give her much better odds of survival than it may first appear. First of all, her Nen Beast has a massive stockpile of aura that it's been steadily collecting from her followers. What does that stockpile actually do? Well, I guess we don't know for sure, but it's a pretty safe and logical assumption, I feel, that it powers some kind of defense mechanism for when Tyson is threatened. I theorize all about what it does in this video, but suffice it to say, it's got some kind of yet-to-be-revealed trump card that could absolutely throw a wrench in the works of any attempts to execute her. Her second secret weapon, though, is Izunavi. This guy is an absolute expert at Nen, so when her beast reveals its ace in the hole, it's Izunavi who's going to be able to come up with a strategy to utilize it to its fullest. Also, Izunavi is genuinely on her side, and he hasn't read the Book of Tyson. This means a few things. First of all, his thinking won't be clouded by the dopamine overload, and the beast isn't collecting his aura, so he'll be in very top form when shit hits the fan. Secondly, because he hasn't read the book, Izunavi isn't considered one of her followers, and is thus presumably immune to the punishment the Nen Beast metes out for breaking Tyson's greatest taboo. That taboo is presumably violence, and so when people come to kill Tyson, expecting a bunch of lovey-dovey pacifist hippies who can't fight back, they'll be surprised when one of the most seasoned hunters on this ship starts mowing them down. So yes, Tyson absolutely does not have what it takes to win the succession war, but survive? I think she can do that. Luzurus, on the other hand, is screwed for several reasons. Firstly, Kaiser, Melody, and Kacho Beast attempted to assassinate him, and frankly, I think they succeeded. Secondly, I fully believe the theory that his guard, Rice, is possessed by a Halkenberg helper, and could have easily aided in that assassination attempt. See, most assassins have to be discreet, because they worry about what'll happen if they're caught and punished, but not Rice. Since Rice isn't really Rice, if he's executed, whoever was possessing him will just wake up and all will be well for them. And aside from all this, even if Luzurus escaped, he's gone to the Cha'ar hideout, which is a terrible idea for all the reasons I explained with Zhonglei. The one thing Luzurus has over Zhong is that his Nen Beast is actually useful to protect him, but still, he didn't have nearly as many competent people trying to kill him either. 9th Prince Halkenberg is not gonna make it. Ignoring the fact that he might already be dead, he is rapidly sliding into the same kind of murderous territory as the older princes, and his moral degeneration has been quite rapid ever since Nasabi got him to start listening to My Chemical Romance. With his situation growing increasingly more desperate, I can imagine him quickly coming to the conclusion that he has to purge his entire bloodline to save his country. He kinda right though. And what's more, I think I know exactly what would flip the switch in his brain. See, if like I firmly believe, Rice is possessed by a Halkenberg helper, that helper probably saw Fugetsu attempt to murder Luzurus. And if Fugetsu, who was once the kindest and sweetest girl who would never ever hurt a fly, has stooped to actively murdering her siblings, well, I can easily imagine Halkenberg going, "Oh my god, none of them are innocent, they all need to go." So yeah, narratively this man is just not gonna make it. Speaking of my Foogly Woogly Bear, all the copium in the world can't convince me that her chances of living are good. First of all, she's risked her life to assassinate Luzurus. Even if she survived that, it didn't accomplish anything, because Luzurus is not the source of her curse. In other words, she's still cursed. And even if we believe my copium-induced theory that Fugetsu isn't really cursed and is in fact becoming a monster, as explored in this video, like, get real. That's still a very bad sign for her. Who knows how insane she'll go once she learns Kacho has died. She might end up needing to be killed, just like the other princes. You know who's probably not gonna have any part in that though? Mariam. We have zero reason to believe his pocket dimension can be accessed, and I genuinely think he might survive the succession war just by doing absolutely nothing. All he has to do, probably, is chill, and this whole thing is gonna work itself out without him. Sure, there's a would-be assassin in his room, but there's no goddamn way said assassin has exactly the right ability to kill him without being stopped by Bisky, Hanzo, and or his guardian spirit beast, which is one of the more aggressive and formidable ones we've seen. And last but not least, Wobble is Wobble. Wobble has Kurapika. Kurapika is him. Therefore, Wobble is safe.
The great tree of Kakin is diseased and rotten. Hello and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. My name is CJ, and I believe that quite a few people, both in and out of the world of Hunter x Hunter, are laboring under a bit of a misapprehension. You see, many of the more noble-minded characters believe that if someone reasonable like Halkenberg or Zhonglei were to win the Succession War, the violence would stop there. Some might even be so bold or idealistic as to say a truly noble leader like Halkenberg can fix the country. However, I firmly believe that this is completely impossible by design. Let's dive into why. The Kakin Empire, like any major country, is no stranger to turmoil and transformation. From its very beginnings, it was surrounded by hostile neighbors and had to take extreme measures in order to survive. Extreme measures such as sacrificing every potential ruler and leaving only one survivor. Right from the outset, we can see that this is a ruthless way to organize a society. If a country's rulers have access to Nen, then there are all sorts of different ways to maximize its effectiveness besides just killing a bunch of people. However, this choice is a showcase of the ideology at the very heart of the Kakin Empire, a twisted, hierarchical version of survival of the fittest. According to said ideology, those who rule do so because of their superior strength and cunning, thus granting them the ultimate decision-making authority. While most monarchies believe in the divine right of kings, Kakin believes in might makes right. Accordingly, all who are below them are nothing but fodder, subhuman tools to be used however the rulers see fit. This explains why Kakin even has a caste system. It's just another natural expression of the same idea. The philosophy of the so-called weak as nothing but tools can be seen very obviously in the Succession War, where dead princes are used as fuel for some sort of as of yet unknown grander purpose. However, it's also evident in how Terror Sandwich chops up women for the sake of art, an activity which, I'd like to note, appears to be facilitated by government agents. Granted, those agents might be private, but Terror Sandwich's crimes do appear to be an open secret amongst the royals, so they, at the very least, look the other way. Kakin's rotten ideology also manifests in its carnivals, barbaric atrocities inflicted upon the lower classes in which people are nothing but meat. The way those people then go on to be funneled into the mafia, which are in turn tools of the princes, further accentuates that people only exist to be tools for Kakin's rulers. The last example of this philosophy I want to bring up is the practice of afterlife companions. In order to prevent princes who have fallen in the Succession War from rising up as vengeful spirits, in other words, as specters of post-mortem Nen, people from the lowest caste were chosen as sacrifices to be killed alongside them and keep them company in death. This was probably some sort of sacrifice-based Nen ability, but once again, it shows us that characteristic Kakinian ideology. So we've explored the ways in which Kakin is royally messed up, sure, but it's also important to note that Kakin seems to have undergone significant changes from its bloody and barbaric past. For instance, the custom of selecting afterlife companions for deceased princes has been abolished. The monarchy supposedly no longer has absolute power, and Kakin has undergone a process referred to as its democratization. This, sparked by something about which we know very little called the most silent revolution in history, was meant to bring Kakin into the modern era and wash away its grim past. The aforementioned revolution took place over 30 years ago now. However, as noted by Morena Prudo, nothing has really changed. While you'd assume the carnivals would stop after the monarchy lost its stranglehold on the power structure, they have, in fact, continued in secret. Other supposed reforms are for naught as well. The afterlife companion system still lives on in a different form under the direction of Second Prince Camilla. Now, upon first reading, the explanation of the afterlife companion system that Togashi provided seems a bit out of place in the backstory of how Camilla let the have-nots join her personal army. It doesn't have any direct connection to the rights she gave them or the loyalty they feel towards her, nor is the practice mentioned again in the description of their curse ability. However, the reason Togashi included it is very simple, to show us that the Kakin Empire doesn't change. Not really. The idea of making the have-nots use an ability that sacrifices their lives to activate a curse and accompany their designated prince to their death is basically just a new form of the afterlife companion practice. The poor are still being used as fodder for Nen abilities that benefit the royals. As for all this stuff about democratization and Kakin undergoing a revolution, I must pose a question. What, dear viewers, do we know about Kakin's parliament? What do we know about the arms of the government that aren't composed of royals, but of elected officials? The Succession War is a story rife with incredibly detailed and complex political intrigue, after all. Government motions and policies are frequently discussed. And despite all that, we know nothing about Kakin's parliament. When Benjamin enacts his martial law plan, he doesn't talk about convincing Parliament of anything. It's the Zodiacs and Kakin Justice Bureau who he needs under his control. Why? Because they are responsible for enforcing laws. Who the hell is Parliament? They do nothing. That, my friends, is exactly the reason Togashi hasn't shown us anything about the Kakin Parliament. They're nothing, they're nobodies, they have no power. The royal family of Kakin talks like being king means having absolute control over the country, and that's because this is basically the truth. This makes it obvious that Kakin's supposed democratization is nothing but a sham to pacify the people and legitimize the nation in the eyes of the rest of the world. Though we don't know much about it, the event that led to Kakin's supposed democratization gives the whole thing away just via its name. The most silent revolution in history? Yeah, right. Throughout history, kings don't exactly have a track record of giving up power quietly. It was silent because it wasn't a real revolution, and it wasn't any kind of threat to the king. If it was, you'd best believe it wouldn't have been silent. So enough yapping about how Kakin hasn't actually changed. Let me tell you why Kakin can't change. See, the whole Succession War is about perpetuating the cycle. I have no doubt that the Succession War is designed to enforce the system as it is. The Blade of Divine Favor is meant to be passed on to the next king of Kakin, and we can assume that like the Seed Urn and the Lotus Anchorite, it is a powerful Nen-imbued artifact with some grand purpose and ability. Just as the Seed Urn and Lotus Anchorite lock participants into the Succession War, the Blade of Divine Favor may very well lock the next king into ruling in a certain way, a way that comports with the conditions of a similarly powerful Nen ability. Of course, it's also possible that the enforcement mechanisms of this cycle are more passive than that. After all, the Succession War itself is a selection process that rewards the use of other human lives like pawns in a game. It reflects the same ideology as that which governs the Kakin Empire, and to refuse to use other people like tools puts one at a severe disadvantage in the contest. It even encourages several princes to follow this path by directly giving them abilities which use other people as tools. Now, surely, Prince Halkenberg, who wants to end the injustices of the Kakin Empire, wouldn't stoop that low, would he? Oh no. Okay, well, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, and sometimes sacrifices have to be made for the greater good, right? Yeah, I have my doubts. I think the Succession War is designed to condition even noble and well-intentioned princes like Halkenberg to view human lives as tools. I mean, they kind of have to do that in order to survive. Those who refuse to see things this way are killed. Those who adapt are forever corrupted. And this allows Kakin's ideology to perpetuate itself throughout generations. A bit more evidence for this idea is the fact that King Nasabi seems incredibly sure his son's principles will be defeated. Halkenberg threatens to upend everything that Kakin stands for, yet Nasabi is completely unperturbed. He says, "Tell me you don't need a king after you become one," as if to say, by the time all this is over, your views won't be a problem anymore. Even worse, by endeavoring to become king through the Succession War, Halkenberg has already conceded to Nasabi's premise. Unlike Kurapika, he's not searching for a way to disrupt the Succession War, he's seeking to win, and that choice was what assured his moral downfall. One way or another, by active coercion or passive coercion, even if Halkenberg becomes king, he will not reform the Kakin Empire into a more just society as he currently seeks to. If Halkenberg wins, he will be a product of the system of succession, and like with the most silent revolution in history, the system will not destroy itself. It's designed to continue. I mean, do you really believe, dear viewer, that Halkenberg is unique? Do you really think there were no other princes throughout all the generations that the Succession War has been running who wanted to win so that they could change the system? I'm sure there were,
but the system either selected them out or molded them into different people. That is the true trap of the succession war. If you become the person you need to be in order to survive it, you become a person who will keep it going until the end of time. For all her evil, Morena has a pretty good point about the Kakin Empire. It cannot be reformed from the inside. In fact, it's designed to be impossible for that to happen. That's why Kakin's government must not be seized, it must not be fixed, it must not be changed. For the people under its rule to be released from their suffering, it must be destroyed.
11th Prince Fugetsu is on the verge of the crash out of the century, and it could change the course of the succession war. Hello, and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. Today, I want to shine some light on a dark horse candidate to win the succession war, and it's totally not just me coping because she's my favorite. Now, I want to admit that one of my very first videos on this channel is about how screwed Fugetsu is, but after having had a few months to think things through and refill my copium prescription, I think there's a possibility very few people have considered. What if Fuug's aura just did that? Seriously, hear me out. It was 3 a.m. and I'd spent all day fighting with my partner. I was watching some of my old videos to rebuild my self-esteem. I watched the one about who cursed Fugetsu, and I realized something. While they were all possible, none of my theories seemed all that likely. And that honestly is the main problem of this arc. There are so many moving parts, so many different possibilities, that nothing feels likely. The possibilities for how it could all go down are endless. But still, it felt incomplete to me, like I was missing something. And after reviewing the evidence, I think we may be looking in all the wrong places for the source of Fugetsu's curse. You see, we've been taking the opinions of those knowledgeable in the subject as facts, and when it comes to Nen, sometimes even the experts are just taking stabs in the dark. The truth is, I think there's a lot more to Prince Fuug than meets the eye, and here's why. Kacho and Fugetsu aren't just these sweet, innocent girls who didn't want to take part in this killing game. They also represent something very specific. You see, their names form the components of the Japanese proverb Kacho Fugetsu, which, composed of the kanji for flower, bird, wind, and moon, refers to the beauties of nature. However, this proverb also has an additional meaning. It refers to how, through observing nature, one can attain personal growth or development. Additionally, I'd like to point out that Kacho gets the light and fluffy kanji, flower and bird, while Fuug's kanji, wind and moon, can have more sinister meanings. The wind can be a tremendously destructive force, especially in the context of Japanese culture, since the region is prone to typhoons, and the moon indicates nighttime, in which sinister deeds are carried out. Still not seeing the vision yet? Let me sell you on it a bit more. This entire thing is about nature. The succession war is inspired by the goo pot ritual, which combines nature's most potent weapons into one super poison. A theme throughout Togashi's work time and time again is how human beings are the most terrifying thing nature has to offer. The guardian spirit beasts aren't the only animals in this game. Nasubi even compares his children to beasts, and this is all based on a survival of the fittest, as according to nature mindset anyway. And I want to reiterate, Kacho Fugetsu isn't just about nature, it's about self-discovery through nature. Togashi's view of humanity is pretty bleak, to say the least. Fugetsu could just be the latest example of how he thinks there's a monster inside every person waiting to be nurtured and released. So what exactly does all this mean for our cursed prince? See, Melody starts going down some wild speculation here with the theory of how Fuug's curse operates, but we don't actually see any evidence of this being true. We really have no proof aside from this bug bite thing that Fuug was cursed to begin with. This bug bite can be explained in all sorts of ways. Maybe she was actually poisoned by non-Nen related means, or maybe it's left over from How to Get Away with Murder. I want to remind everyone that How to Get Away with Murder was briefly attached to Prince Fugetsu before she vanished and caused the ability to fail. How to Get Away with Murder is this little stinger ball thing, and it has a needle. This could make exactly the sort of injection mark we see on Fuug. This whole thing would make an excellent red herring in the mystery of Fugetsu's state, and is exactly the sort of thing Togashi would do to disguise the fact that Fuge is just like this now. Now, another reason you might be so inclined to think Fuge is cursed would be these freaky-deaky spirits surrounding her like vultures circling a dying animal. Surely those don't just appear out of nowhere, and they have to be components of some Nen ability, right? Well, no, actually. Apparently, these guys are just a thing that can show up around people whose auras are severely depleted, which has some crazy implications for the world. But this isn't the video to unpack all that. And no, this isn't just Melody's speculation either. She's not just some superstitious weirdo acting on her own. Prince Benjamin himself confirms that spirits showing up to haunt people is just a phenomenon that occurs, which again feels really weird to say about Hunter x Hunter, but here we are. With how this series has progressed, it can be very easy to forget that we live in the world of shape-shifting magical beasts, and also apparently the undead. So, with that in mind, what exactly is the evidence that Fugetsu was cursed in the first place? All we actually have to go on is that little mark, which has plenty of alternate explanations, and the fact that her aura levels are pretty much always near zero. But again, I want to stress I believe that this is all self-imposed. Ever since her failed escape attempt with Kacho, Fuge has been pushing her ability beyond its reasonable limits in order to learn about it and how best to use it. Melody and Kacho Beast are assuming that this is due to some sort of manipulation, but honestly, with what we know about Fuge, is this not reasonable behavior? She pretty much lives for her sister. One of the first images aboard the Black Whale that we have of her is her crying over the fact that she can't be in the same place as Kacho, and she's absolutely hell-bent on protecting her at all costs. I mean, Kacho Fugetsu is one saying. You can't have one half without the other. They just go together. All this to say, after this near-death experience and the realization that escaping the Succession War isn't an option, it's only natural that Fuge will be determined to fight to protect Kacho. She is pushing herself as hard as she possibly can in order to make sure that Kacho survives. It's her whole reason for carrying on. One small problem, Kacho is already dead. As soon as Fuge finds this out, she is on track to have a Gon finding out Kite's dead level crash out as well. Speaking of which, I've noticed some parallels between Kacho and Fuge and Gon and Killua. Fuge is the modest, direct, and genuine dark-haired one, while Kacho's the more outgoing, sassy, protective, conniving, light-haired one. And a character with parallels to Gon, having someone else they care about protecting secretly be already dead is, well, it's a pretty bad sign. I think what happened to Gon might end up happening to Fuge on a smaller scale. This girl is locking the hell in, and she might easily start doing some horrible things just to keep what she thinks is her sister safe. I mean, look at some of these panels. She looks downright ghoulish. Togashi doesn't draw her like a sick girl. Well, okay, sometimes he does, but he also draws her in a menacing sort of way, like a villain. She's pushing herself way too hard, and she doesn't understand how much danger her overexertion is leaving her in. But still, she's made remarkable progress. Fuge has gone from being able to use Magical Worm once a day to being able to use it several times. She doesn't know it, but by repeatedly using her ability, she's performing the same kind of Ren training as Gon and Killua, and her talents are rapidly developing. Every one of King Nasabi's children has shown to be tremendously gifted with Nen. Benjamin Baton is exceptionally powerful. Cat's Name is capable of bringing Camilla back from the dead. Parallel Future breaks reality as we know it. Grimal Le Dissonance is an unblockable menace unlike anything else we've ever seen, and Contagion is the single most dangerous Hatsu that Togashi has ever shown us. The Huiguo-Ro bloodline runs rich with talent, and Fugetsu seems to be no exception. Right now, she's untrained. She barely knows anything about Nen or how it works, and she's pushing herself to the point of complete exhaustion without actually knowing why. But if Melody's faction can get her under control and properly train her to wield Nen, she could become a monster on the level of her siblings. She's proving, right now, that she has that dog in her. And if she survives long enough to both nurture those talents and to discover the truth of Kacho's death, we could have yet another Nen-based catastrophe on our hands. I mean, when Haukenberg became determined to fight instead of just stop the war, he just spontaneously gained this ability. Terror Sandwich learned Parallel Future by accident. The same thing happening is in no way out of the question for Foog. Anytime one of Nasabi's kids shows off a Nen ability of their own, it's something crazy that shakes up the whole contest and forces us to radically reevaluate everything. If Fugetsu manages to control her Nen and gains something as formidable as her siblings, there's no telling how drastic a turn things could take in this 11th hour of the Succession War. Many fans of Foog see her current state and worry that she's going to die soon, but that is the best case scenario. I think Togashi's choice of symbolism foreshadows the birth of yet another monster who could, in her cornered animal style passion, do unspeakable things and unleash the greatest horrors nature has to offer upon the denizens of the Black Whale One. But hey, this could easily just be me overdosing on copium. I could be wrong.
Beyond Netero actually has 3 children! Hello and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. My name is CJ, and today I want to put forth the idea that Beyond Netero has planted more than just one of his seeds beneath the great tree of Kakin. I believe there's a good chance his children are Camilla, Tabeppa, and Luzerus. In other words, all the children of second Queen Dwazil. So let's dive into why exactly I believe this to be the case. First of all, as many people have already stated, having multiple children just makes more sense. Beyond is a careful planner and not the type to put all his eggs into one proverbial basket. After all, he only needs one of his children to win the Succession War. And the more kids are his, the better the chances that one of them wins. But then we have to consider the risks of having multiple children in the first place. You see, despite this literally being called the Cucking Empire, doing anything to disrespect the king or compromise the monarchy, like, say, banging one of his wives, is going to be met with some pretty serious retribution. I mean, Kakin cares a lot about its bloodlines and the purity of the monarchy and royal blood and all that, and any queen that gives birth to one of Beyond's children is giving birth to a child that doesn't have a drop of royal blood in their body. That's pretty serious. And furthermore, let us not make the mistake of stripping these queens of autonomy as individuals. You have to realize that they all have to, agree to cheat with Beyond for this to work, right? Unless they're being manipulated, but we'll come back to that. What I'm trying to say is that Beyond can't just rock up to a queen and go, "Hey baby, let me hit so I can control your country in the future." Because you've got to remember that these women are also taking a huge risk. I mean, cheating on the king is genuinely insane unless they're getting something out of it. And knowing Beyond Netero for the manipulative bastard he is, I think he genuinely seduced one of the queens. Let's face it, I doubt any of the queens love King Nasabi. Most of them, like Oito, probably married the king to escape lives of squalor and poverty, and he picked them up for their looks. There's no love there, it's a transactional relationship. They got the luxury and status they wanted, but now they have to bear the king's children and raise their kids to win the Succession War. But some of these women are bound to end up lonely and unfulfilled. They're making a trade-off that can't be undone, is their only option to escape from truly dire conditions, and they can't understand the consequences of until they're living with them. Some of them will no doubt long for the genuine romance they gave up in order to avoid dying of sepsis in a slum. And that's where Beyond enters the picture. We've seen that he's an extremely charismatic and manipulative charmer, and I could absolutely imagine him seducing a queen by being the handsome, rugged adventurer who wants to change the world and loves the queen for her personality, not just her looks. Heck, it probably wouldn't even be that hard, with how starved for connection a lot of these women are bound to be. I could easily see him having an affair with a queen, convincing her he loves her, and coming up with this bombastic plan to get their child on the throne so they can be together. Sure, he could appeal to certain queens' lust for power, but Beyond is all about control. And I think a woman who's genuinely infatuated with him would be a lot easier to control and a lot more willing to take these risks for him, so he's most likely to target one of them. And what's more, these affairs are really hard to keep secret from literally everyone. If he were to two-time with one of the other queens, well then they'd realize he didn't actually love them, and they'd blow the whole thing up and then his plan is sunk. No, the safest option is to completely and utterly enthrall one of the queens and then have as many children with just her as possible. So why Dwazil specifically? Well, I have a multitude of reasons to suspect this. For one, Beyond would want to aim as high as possible in the queen's hierarchy, because higher ranking queens have more power. But for whatever reason, it seems like he either wasn't able to or didn't want to get with Unma. I say this because it seems like Benjamin has been ruled out as a possibility for being one of his children, and Unma seems like the power-hungry type that would be difficult for Beyond to work with in the long run. Furthermore, she is shown to have no issue taking an active role in the succession war. Halkenberg asked her for her help in some as of yet unknown way, and she promised to provide. This, I think, is not the ideal strategy for anyone working with Beyond. See, if he manages to set his curses off, the entire succession war could come to an end, just like that. The ideal move would be to slow the roll on the whole conflict and stall for time for Beyond to meet whatever conditions he has to in order to do exactly that. And which queen has tried to do exactly that? Dwazil is the only one who has even made anything resembling an effort. We don't know all the queen's personalities, but Seiko, Swinko, and Unma have all made moves to try and add more fuel to the fire of the succession war. Patrono has actively wanted Tyson to participate, and Oito just wants out of all this, not like someone who knows her man will take care of her. Dwazil, however, did the opposite. When Camilla asked for help taking on Benjamin, she refused it. And that's very strange, given that Benjamin is not her child, and is thus her enemy. Surely she would want to offer Camilla any help she could, right? But no, Dwazil refused to add fuel to that fire, and has been the most demure and passive of any of the queens that we've seen. We don't know shit about Tang Zhao Li still, and I hope that changes. Furthermore, I think she knew exactly how the Camilla and Benjamin confrontation would go down. See, she tells Camilla's guards not to back her up when they initially planned to, or at least they planned to try and stop her, which was the smart and conflict-averse play. With Camilla going herself, she's gonna get herself thrown in prison, where she's ironically safer than with free reign, because when she has free will, she makes bad decisions that put her into worse situations. And if she dragged her soldiers into the whole thing with her, it would have been an absolute bloodbath. Dwazil absolutely seems like she's stalling for time to let Beyond's curses take care of the problem for her. However, I do have a far more sinister idea about Dwazil. I think there's a decent chance Beyond Netero is in some way manipulating her. Like, with Nen this time, not emotionally. I get this idea from Longhi's backstory. She explains how once her half-sister Makaha went against Beyond's plans, her parents were strangely calm and acting out of character. Longhi strongly suspected that they were in some way being manipulated. So that's at least one case of Beyond having manipulated a woman he banged, and also her partner, which opens up a serious can of worms. Like at that point, we have to ask, was Beyond manipulating this woman with Nen before they conceived Makaha? That is a horrifying possibility that I would absolutely not put past this man. Anyway, that entire story shows direct parallels to Dwazil's situation and behavior. She's incredibly passive and demure at all times. And what if this isn't just because she's waiting for Beyond's curses to activate? What if she's under the effects of a Nen ability that is keeping her calm? It honestly kind of seems like Beyond has some sort of pseudo-coercive manipulator ability where one of the conditions is he has to smash the person he uses it on. And like I said, the parallels. It's when Makaha drops out of the royal army, saying she's going to do what she wants with her life, that her parents show evidence of manipulation by being uncharacteristically calm about the whole situation. And similarly, we see Dwazil's demure nature on full display when Camilla says or does something she disapproves of. It's like she's actively forbidden from having an opinion of her own or interfering. And that's what makes me think Beyond might have not only seduced Dwazil, but then gone on to manipulate her with Nen. There's another reason I think Dwazil is the one over Unma though. See, their children's personalities are wildly different, and I genuinely cannot fathom Unma's children ever accepting the situation if they found out Beyond was their father. Benjamin cares about his country and its ideals and wants to preserve the monarchy, and would be horrified by the revelation that he doesn't have a drop of royal blood in him. Kara Sandwich's ego would crumble under that same revelation, and Halkenberg cares way too much about having control over and reforming Kakin to ever work with Beyond in the ways Beyond is going to want. Contrast this with Dwazil's children. You might expect Camilla's pride to be hurt, but she never actually shows a sense of superiority from being royal. She doesn't believe in monarchy, bloodlines, or status. She only believes in herself because she's an egomaniac. She doesn't like Nasabi, and I can't see her caring if Beyond was her father. Beppa and Luzurus also would have nothing against that. They'd probably welcome it, knowing it gave them better odds of being king. So this difference in personality could be down to the individuals, sure, but I think nurture is much more important than nature. To me, this shows that these princes have simply been raised and taught to prioritize different things. And wouldn't that be awfully convenient if this set of princes were educated into mindsets that would let them accept Beyond as their father? And before anyone says that Luzurus is actually the child of Brocco Lee because he's connected to that mafia family, and Zhonglei is the son of Onyor of the Yu, no, I don't think so. This is an assumption the fandom has long held, but it doesn't need to be true in the slightest. After all, Morena, the boss of the Heili, isn't Terror Sandwich's mother. And yes, this is a replacement Morena, but the old boss of the Heili was the real Morena, and unless she was transgender, which would be a fucking crazy piece of lore for Togashi to drop about a character who died before the arc even started, but I guess is technically possible, this proves that the children with mafia connections are not always the product of unions between the mafia bosses and queens. So, there could be any number of reasons Luzurus and Terror Sandwich were the benefactors of the mafia families they were. Heck, Luzurus might even bankroll the Cha'ar specifically because of the connections Beyond established for him. We have no way of knowing for the time being. So yeah, logistically, from every point of view you could consider it, I think forming relations with Twazel was the most pragmatic choice for Beyond and the most likely one he pursued. Now, I'm sure some of you are gonna go, CJ, I thought you were a Wobble as Beyond's child believer because of the whole Pariston thing, and well, look, I go back and forth on these things, okay? Give me a week and I'll probably think it's Wobble or Miriam again, because I cannot for the life of me stop thinking about Hunter x Hunter. But right now, as I make this video, I think it's the Dwazel kids, and that's all that matters.
This woman right here could save Theta's life. Hello and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. My name is CJ, and today we're going to be discussing exactly why Morena needs a specialist and what ability she wants Volkson to learn. In order to do that, we're going to need to go over what exactly specialists can do that other categories can't do. Now, as we discussed in my last video, I've observed the specialist Nen category to broadly fall into 4 categories of what, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to call fuckery. We've got time fuckery, healing fuckery, Nen fuckery, and mind fuckery. Now, before we go any further, I want to stress that this is not any kind of canon subdivision. It is my personal theory based on what we have observed, and there are valid reasons to disagree with it. However, everything I say in this video will be based on what we have seen specialists do in Hunter x Hunter, and thus, even if you disagree with how I've categorized them, I think it's still worth a watch. So, let's see if we can figure out what exactly Morena is planning. First things first, it's important to establish any evidence Morena herself has given us about what her goals could be. For starters, Morena needs a specialist for this, so it has to involve a Nen ability that only a specialist could create. Additionally, Morena was hoping to snag one of 4th Prince Terror Sandwich's guards for this, so it almost certainly has something to do with our enigmatic prince himself. Morena does say she wants to infect one of his soldiers to keep an eye on his whereabouts, but she wouldn't need a specialist for simple recon, so there has to be more to it than that. Lastly, we need to consider what exactly Morena knows about the situation on the upper tiers. You see, Morena's liaison to the 4th Prince was rather unceremoniously diced and disassembled after Morena betrayed her benefactor, so she probably doesn't know what we know about the 4th Prince's formidable Nen. I add the caveat probably because one of her followers could always have some ability like Palm's Merman Clairvoyance, but I don't believe Togashi has given us any hints in that direction, and opening that can of worms steps into the territory of baseless speculation. So, with that in mind, there's very little chance that Morena knows about the time Terror Sandwich cheated death at Theta's hands. On the other hand, there is a decent chance she knows that he's learning Nen, that he's very talented, and that he is a specialist, since this was revealed before Terror Sandwich cut ties with the Heili, and we don't know how close that liaison was to the prince. So, could it be that Morena simply wants her own specialist to combat the 4th Prince, since specialists are said to be better than other Nen users? Personally, I don't think so. You see, specialists are generally better than other Nen users on a one-to-one basis, but all you really have to do to make up for this is, send multiple people to jump the specialist in question. We saw Krollo get his shit rocked by a pair of emitters in Yorknu, and Morena could easily send 3 or 4 people to jump Terra Sandwich once they had a way to deal with his Guardian Spirit Beast if it were that easy. In other words, this is not something only a specialist can do, and it wouldn't justify going to all the trouble Morena went to get a hold of Volkson. The answer to this question may lie in what exactly sets Terra Sandwich apart from other Nen users for practical purposes. I'm not talking about any kind of ability he deliberately created. What I refer to is the big old horse lady that guards him around the clock. Anyone who wants to take out Terra Sandwich, or for that matter, most princes, is going to have to deal with these big old animals guarding them. Now, yes, it's possible to deal with these beasties without using specialization. Everyone's least favorite yap machine, Rihan, showed us that much. So it still can't be something that simple. So far, all this shows that the most straightforward and efficient ways to deal with Terra Sandwich shouldn't actually require the help of specialists. But we also have to remember that Morena is driven by deeply personal scars and resentments, and it's entirely possible she wants to deal with Terra Sandwich some other way than the most efficient method because of this. She says, knowing him, he'll probably want to kill me himself, suggesting she has a decent knowledge of his character. And he was her benefactor, which may have created some kind of personal relationship between the two. Morena also has an affinity for games and a flair for the dramatic, hinted at by her behavior and how she's designed her Hatsu. Seeing as how Terra Sandwich enjoys tearing apart women like meat, the thing Morena was designated, he can be seen as a direct manifestation of that which she hates most about humanity. As such, I'm inclined to believe she has a far more gruesome and symbolically appropriate fate in mind for him than a simple assassination. She says he'll want to kill her with his own hands, but I suspect the feeling is quite mutual. Still, this doesn't tell us a whole lot. Perhaps we'll have better luck if we take a look at the different kinds of specialist abilities that have been shown throughout Hunter x Hunter and try to see how they could benefit Morena in the whole dealing with Terra Sandwich department. Let's start with healing fuckery. Now, I really doubt Morena wants Volkson to have an ability that puts people back together again, even though that could be useful to her. She could maybe get her liaison back this way, if she were to find all the bits, or she could heal her fallen comrades. There's also the rather macabre possibility that she wants to torture the 4th prince by disassembling him and putting him back together, all while he remains alive. But Morena doesn't seem like the type to waste too long on vendettas. Sure, she might enjoy sadistically killing her adversary, that seems like her, but this girl boss has shit to do. She's busy plotting the extinction of humankind. She's not gonna get hung up on something like this. How about power copying? This is an idea I believe is quite a bit more likely. Power copying seems to be the most well-known specialist ability, and that could be quite useful to Morena as well. You see, part of what I get from Morena's very multifaceted and layered character is an undertone of jealousy. She hates the royals, yes, but she also envies them a bit. She resents what her parent did to her, yet she created a card game and a Hatsu that positions herself as a parent to several children. Just like the Kakin princes, Morena sought power and a loyal faction of guards to play offensive and defensive roles in a death game. She even created her own death game, as if she only wished she could take part in the succession contest as she could if she were a legitimate child of the king. Thus, I posit, she might not just want to destroy Terra Sandwich's Nen Beast, but find a way to copy it and steal it for herself. It would complete Morena's parallels to the Kakin princes. She's already in a death game with a small group of loyal followers, so having a guardian spirit beast of her own would really fill that in. If Volkson were able to create something like Kurapika's Steel Chain and procure Terra Sandwich's Nen Beast, it would help Morena feel just a bit closer to her royal kin. It would also be a fantastic strategic move. Morena is the head of this whole operation, and likely the strategist behind the Heoli's efficient level grinding system. The movement could probably survive without her due to its contagious nature, sure, but the longer Morena lives, the more likely her goal of destroying the world will be realized, and it cannot be understated how useful these guardian spirit beasts are. Once Theta made up her mind to kill the 4th prince, she needed to concoct a whole elaborate plan to get that guardian spirit beast out of her way, because even though Terra Sandwich didn't even know Nen yet, the beast was just so formidable that she didn't think she could do it. Having this thing protecting you is equal to like a permanent bodyguard that's stronger than the average hunter and doesn't need to eat, sleep, or leave your side. It's incredibly formidable and would honestly be a pretty fitting move for Morena. You see, Morena has a tendency of appropriating the things that have abused her and using them for her own gain. Just like how contagion is passed on by a kiss, and just like how she took over the Heoli Mafia, the Guardian Spirit Beasts are a symbol of the succession war in Kakin's monarchy. To appropriate one for her own usage would only continue this trend and further this symbolic pattern, whether it's just a bit of literary goodness or whether it's something she's consciously doing for herself. On that note, I want to say that this is, in my opinion, the second most likely idea, but it's first in my heart. That's because this directly shows how my girl Theta could be saved. If Terror Sandwich were to lose his beast, he wouldn't even know it. After all, he can't even see the thing. Even if somebody told him, he would lose his lie detector and Theta could lie to him to her heart's content without being under the imminent threat of the beast's ability, which activates when she lies to the prince 3 times, and she's currently at strike 2. But that's enough copium for now. You see, there's one aspect of Terror Sandwich's power that we haven't even touched on yet, and it very well may be why Morena felt the need to obtain a specialist in order to deal with this man. You see, Terror Sandwich is apparently something of a genius. When it comes to his Nen strategy, despite being a novice, he's able to outthink Theta and anticipate mechanics and aspects of it that Theta hasn't even hinted at to him. He seems to be a prodigy at every field he steps into, being incredibly well-versed in art, philosophy, and science, as well as displaying formidable intellect and determination with things like his gun disassembly training. The most dangerous thing about this man is absolutely his mind, and the other 2 types of specialization can help with that. Morena appears to demonstrate concern about whatever move Tsarayadnik will make against her, and that, I believe, is what she really wants Volkson to help with. You see, when it comes to gathering information, specialists are unmatched. They can erase their presence from others' minds, they can read memories, and they can even predict the future. I believe that what Morena really wants is for Volkson to develop one of these 3 Nen abilities in order to anticipate Terror Sandwich's next move against her and counter it appropriately. It also fits with what she said about her goals. This method would just be keeping tabs on Terror Sandwich, but it would be doing so in ways only a specialist could. If, as I suspect, Morena really does know the 4th Prince decently well, then it'll be obvious to her that this guy is simply smarter than she is, and she needs to be prepared for that if she's going to beat him. Sending a bunch of guys to break his kneecaps won't be enough to defeat the 4th Prince. He'll find a way to outsmart them. Something like Neon's ability or Pakunoda's ability would be the best way for Morena to protect herself from the 4th Prince's machinations. And I believe that is her true goal in recruiting Volkson.
There is a chance that the person Beyond Netero wants to meet with is somebody you don't even know the name of or care about. Hello, and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. Ever since Chapter 401 drops, people have been speculating left and right who exactly Beyond Netero could be asking Kansai to arrange a meeting with. And look, I think it could be someone big and important and interesting, but there's also a chance it's really banal and boring on its own. In practice, though, it is going to make things go haywire. Well, I mean, even more haywire than they've already gone with the declaration of special martial law, but we're all chaos gremlins on this channel. We want more blood, we want more violence, so let's unpack exactly how Beyond could be making things worse for everybody this time. First of all, we have to consider Beyond's possible motivations in asking to meet someone. The obvious answer is that he's telling a joke we never got to hear the punchline to, and that would seem the most in character if this wasn't the last we see of him in this batch of chapters. He might be inclined, then, to say he's summoning one of his co-conspirators to deliver some coded message about how it's time to break him free. But no, Beyond isn't planning to escape until the Black Whale arrives on the new continent at the very earliest. We know this because Kurapika fact-checked his ass with Dowsing Chain all the way back in Chapter 349. And furthermore, if he summoned some co-conspirator, that would immediately get them put on a watch list. Beyond's being guarded by 3 Zodiacs. One's a traitor and one's an idiot, sure, but Sokka would absolutely get eyes on whoever it was, so their course of action would be very limited. So what are Beyond's goals right now? He has 2 that we know of. Firstly, he wants to ensure his child wins the succession war, and secondly, he wants to win over the Zodiacs. Yes, you heard that right. He doesn't see the Zodiacs as enemies, but as future allies. In Chapter 342, he predicts that he will be released and the Zodiacs will accompany him to the Dark Continent. We've seen that Beyond has that same charisma and gravitas as Isaac Netero that wins people's loyalty even when he's being an unreasonable dickwad, and he's well aware of it and uses it as part of his carefully crafted public persona. Zystom even flags that all the Zodiacs have a proven track record of being susceptible to exactly that kind of charisma, and if Kanzai's expressions are anything to go by, oops, it's happening again. Beyond wants to use that Netariz and get the Zodiacs on his side so they can join his Dark Continent expedition, and that means charming and manipulating them. So that alone gives us ideas as to who it could be. Beyond may want to meet with one of the Zodiacs who hasn't been guarding him, and get a feel for their personality. If I had to guess, it's either Leorio or Kurapika, because they're the two Zodiacs he hasn't met even once. Also, it would be a very good way to bring Leorio back into the main plot. See, Leorio's on tier 3 of the Black Whale and very busy. If Beyond wants to speak to him, it could take several hours to get him there in the first place. Plus, the Zodiacs are probably going to talk to each other and figure out whether or not to even honor Beyond's request, and whatever incentive he's probably provided that I'm not going to even bother speculating on right now. But come on, we agree that he has to have provided an incentive, right? Otherwise, the Zodiacs aren't just gonna do what he says. I mean, Kanzai wouldn't even give him a new book. He was like, yeah, you've got a beard, you've got your blood, you can write a new book. So, yeah, factor all that in, and while Beyond makes his request on the 10th day, it's not unreasonable to suspect that Leorio may not arrive until the 12th day. And just imagine Leorio being in the same room as Beyond Netero when Benjamin declares special martial law. That would certainly be a way to hook him back into the main plot for damn sure. But what I think is more likely is the possibility that Beyond is going to meet with somebody that pulls the trigger on all of his cursed children in some way. It could be as simple as a living detonator, somebody who's being manipulated or willing to sacrifice themselves for the cause, and whose death kicks off the launch of every other curse. Or, otherwise, he could give the person a key phrase or ask them to do something that pulls the trigger. Sure, whoever gets called to meet with him will be monitored 24/7 after that, but that may not be enough to prevent their ritual suicide, or maybe all they need to do is send a text message, and suddenly the rippling effects of Beyond's request become harder to track until it's too late. And as for who this could be, well, it could really be anyone, but if I had to guess, Beyond would pick somebody he has a pretense to meet so that the Zodiacs don't catch on. Maybe he'll ask to meet Kaiser from the Justice Bureau so he can discuss his legal rights. Or maybe he'll ask to meet Steiner to discuss the logistics of the expedition. Steiner was designated a person of extreme importance by the V6 who must survive at all costs or else it's a paperwork disaster, and this just keeps getting brought up. What if Beyond and his people planted these seeds in the V6 and got Steiner promoted specifically because he has some kind of important role in the detonation of the Nen curses on Beyond's children? If something happened to Steiner before it was time for the catastrophic curse kaboom, the curses probably wouldn't go off. Plus, making a singular normal guy who can't use Nen the living detonator for all the Nen curses that can't be set off until weeks into an extremely volatile death game would make for an extremely risky condition, and therefore make those curses all the more powerful. There's also the possibility that Beyond is trying to send a message to the prince that is his child, and while I don't want to rule it out completely, there have to be some serious caveats on this one for it to make any sense. See, calling the specific prince who is his child to his cell is out of the question. This paints a huge target on their back. If Beyond's not an idiot, he has to assume that some of his kids are in the Longkey boat and want to fuck his shit up. If Beyond asks to meet with one of the princes, those kids will immediately know and start targeting said prince. And that's not to mention the other princes. If they think Beyond is backing one of their siblings, even if they don't know the reason or the full conspiracy, that prince will suddenly be seen as a much greater threat and become target priority number 1. Theoretically then, Beyond could ask for one of that prince's guards to pass the message along, but then it's only a matter of time before the other princes figure out who that guard belongs to, and then we have the same result. So if Beyond is really trying to send a message to any of the princes, I think he would call one of the queen's guards. This basically divides the other prince's attention amongst all that queen's children. I think this is a distinct possibility for a couple reasons. See, for one, the Queen's Guards always seemed a bit unnecessary to me as a narrative construction. It's just more complication than this already absurdly detailed story really needs, although that is in character for Togashi. He likes to come up with crazy-ass systems that don't really have relevance, just to come up with them, just for fun, just for world building, and I do appreciate that about him. So it could be that, but I have my suspicions otherwise. Like, yeah, the difference between the Queen's and Prince's guards is really cool, and there's a lot of potential in that system, but they haven't done a lot that's made me go, oh, that's why Togashi did that. Like, sure, one of them killed Momose, but he did it with a remotely conjured doppelganger. If he really wanted to, Togashi could have just had Tufty be one of Sali's guards with the same ability and made its range a bit higher and bam, dead Momose. I suppose then Hanzo wouldn't get his moment of badassery, but I'm sure that could have been done some other way. However, if Beyond uses the Queen's Guard system to disguise exactly who his secret child is, that would make all the more sense. Furthermore, Beyond has been planning this for decades. He fucked one of the queens, for God's sake. Therefore, it does stand to reason that said unknown queen is collaborating with Beyond in all this, whether of her own free will or not, and by extension, so are all her guards. Ergo, if this is the case, we really only have two options. It has to be the royal guard of either Unma or Dwazil. They're the only two queens who have more than one living child. Therefore, it's gotta be one of those two. Otherwise, I imagine Beyond would deem it too risky. I mean, unless the turnaround from conversation to curse kaboom is really that fast, but given how obscenely powerful these curses are, I have to imagine the detonation trigger is quite difficult. Or you know, he obviously would have done it already as flagged by Longhee and Kurapika. And if he takes a massive risk like exposing his connection to one of the princes, and even a single thing goes wrong, his whole plan is sunk. So yeah, those are my theories about who Beyond is meeting and why. But there's something else I want to mention, just because I can't really think of a better time, place, or video to discuss it. Chapters 342 and 349 actually really cleverly foreshadow Beyond Netero's plans to meddle in the succession war, and that he's working with one of the princes. See, in chapter 342, the verbiage he uses clarifies that he will be set free by someone else, not that he will escape himself. He also clarifies that he will behave for the sake of the king. This hints at the plan he's got in place. Obviously, once his child wins the succession war and becomes king, they can just free him themselves. I think Beyond intends to go free before the boat reaches the new continent, yes, but he passed Kurapika's lie detector test because he genuinely does not mean to cause trouble or raise a ruckus. If he were to escape right now, I mean, that would cause an international incident, and the Black Whale would get turned right around. But if the King of Kakin releases him with an official order saying that Beyond Netero's expertise is needed to help manage the crisis that plunged the country into special martial law, well, he wouldn't be escaping at all. He'd just be following orders and playing by the rules. That's right, Beyond Netero doesn't just plan to get loose on the Black Whale or commandeer it. He plans to have that ship commandeered for him. You know, I've always wondered, why does Beyond give a shit about the Kakin Empire? He was being honest when he told Mizaistam that what he truly cares about is the Dark Continent. He's not interested in ruling a country by proxy, so why has he gone to such efforts to rig the succession war? I mean, this man lives for the Dark Continent expedition. That's what everything in his life has been for up till now. Well, I'll tell you, he's not using the Dark Continent expedition as a way to influence the succession war and get his child on the throne. I believe he had a child with one of the queens and is using the entire succession war as nothing but a stepping stone to ensure he arrives at the Dark Continent in control of the situation with the maximum possible freedom and as many bodies to throw at the calamities as possible. This man has been waiting decades for this, and his plans run so deep that what is to us the main plot of Hunter x Hunter right now, and the only thing any of us care about, is just another scheme in his overall design, a footnote in the history of the Hunter x Hunter world. I'm 100% sure this guy watched my videos. Hello and welcome back to SuccWarCentral. My name is CJ, and before I go any further with this bit, I do want to say I have the full permission and consent of the Hunter Society to use his video in my video. He said, in his words, of course you can do whatever you want with it. So I could use that carte blanche to tear it to pieces, but I won't because firstly, that would be mean, and secondly, I love this video. I do have some nitpicks with it that we're gonna talk about, but I also found some extra evidence that supports exactly what THS was saying, And at the end of the day, I think it's an extremely solid theory. It is, in fact, the silent majority theory I think is third most likely to be true. And sure, nobody wants third place, but as I always say, Hunter x Hunter is so damn complicated and unpredictable that you can almost never find one theory that you really think is the one that is true for any given topic. There are, count 'em, 19 theories I have for the culprit behind silent majority, and not just crack theories. Theories that I've put a lot of thought into and could seriously see being true and have considered making videos on. But this is a Hunter x Hunter channel, not a silent majority channel, so this is the last video I'm gonna make on it. At least until we get new chapters and more information, unless new chapters are already coming out for you guys, since this isn't getting posted till April. So first things first, THS comes up with 3 culprits, more or less. Actually, you know what? I don't want to just spoil it outright, so before you watch the rest of this, go watch his video because like I said, it's an excellent video and I very much enjoy his style and presentation. Link will be in the description. So assuming you've seen it, you know that THS identifies 3 individuals, and I do want to talk about all 3 of them at least a little. So let's have a look at some of his rationale, shall we?
And no, it is not someone outside room 1014 controlling silent majority. Because, first of all, narratively, it does not make sense. You don't introduce a murder mystery and tell us that the killer is lurking among us and show us these people, and then it will turn out to be someone outside this room or someone that we do not know about. It just does not make sense. It will feel like we got cheated. It doesn't make sense narratively. So it is not someone outside the room.
Huh, that's pretty similar to my main theory. I wonder if...
Unless it's a secret room like the one Morena has, and it's controlled by Pariston/Sheila, and he's trying to mess with Kurapika, the new rat of the Zodiacs. Nah, man, it seems far-fetched to me. I don't think it's someone outside the room.
Oh, alright. So this is what we're doing, eh? Okay, this video's not supposed to be about that theory, but I have to defend my number 1, right? I'll say this. Hunter x Hunter is a series where characters form wrong opinions all the time, and we spend a lot of time following them as they form those incorrect opinions and or revise them and get proven wrong, and this is all very in character for Togashi. Also, narratively, I argue it makes perfect sense. Togashi keeps trying to get us to think big picture and keeps stressing how all these different plot lines of the Succession War are heavily interconnected. I mean, remember there used to be a time when we all thought Beyond Netero had nothing to even do with the Succession War, and now he's a central figure in 90% of the theories that come out of this fandom. So yes, making the killer someone completely unknown would feel cheap, but by the same token, THS's statements here treat this one plotline as if it's its own isolated murder mystery. I mean, Mr. Hunter Society would get eaten alive by Umineko Episode 3. That's his last name, right? Just like my full name is CJ SuccWarCentral, his name is The Hunter Society, isn't it? Anyway, my point is that everyone on this boat is part of the murder mystery, and they always have been. Plus, with Morena's pocket dimension, the map I pointed out, and Beyond's involvement in the war, it's not an unfair mystery at all if my theory is right. Togashi has given us all the ingredients to come up with this conclusion ourselves, which is how I came to this conclusion. So with that out of the way and my honor defended, let's get into the actual meat of these theories. Mr. Hunter Society's bronze medal killer is Yuri, the maid of 10th Prince Kacho. Side note, I forgot about the common Japanese lesbianism euphemism for a second and googled Yuri Hunter x Hunter trying to find the wiki page for this maid and
If you're doing a murder mystery, then it sure does make sense for the mystery to be hard to solve. And when you find out, it should be satisfying. And Yuri is a great candidate for that. Let's look at the appearance of silent majority. What does that look like? Well, it looks very similar to Yuri. I mean, just look at that. But then again, we can say that the look of the marionette and the name Silent Majority is based off one of the singers of the J-pop group Kayakazaki 46. It's Togashi's favorite group. Yes, Togashi really loves Kayakazaki 46. But what is more compelling is that this singer is absolutely the inspiration for the Silent Majority look. And she looks also a bit similar to the number 3 suspect. You wanna know what is the name of that singer? Yuri. Yeah, no. Yes, her name is Yuriana, but you can see the Yuri. So silent majority knows the name of Lobbery. I don't see a reason why the guard of like the 13th prince would know the name of the maid of another prince. You know, more will be added to this case. You know, just keep watching. Trust me on this. Keep watching. More will be added and it will make sense in a little bit. But let's move on for now.
No, let's not move on, because THS actually skirted around a really good point in favor of his theory. Now, I hope this doesn't come across as me trying to one-up him, because you know what? I owe this theory to him. I never considered, until he said it, how strange it was for the silent majority user to know Lowberry's name. And without that, I never would have come to this conclusion. You see, knowing Lowberry's name is quite suspicious, but even more so is the choice to target her. And guess what? The murder of Berrigan is unique among silent majority killings. It's the only one where the distraction component is essential. Nobody else who gets killed by it really needs somebody else to see the marionette for the whole thing to work, because none of them happen in view of a Nen user who could stop it. And if silent majority fails to kill somebody, the curse rebounds to the user. So using it in front of a crowd is a big risk. If whoever's possessed by the marionette approaches the situation with a calm and level head, or acts in an unexpected manner, the ability can misfire, and the user gets targeted. So if you had an ability like that, when the chips were down, and messing up was way easier and much more costly, who would you choose to possess? You would choose to possess people that you know very well, and whose reactions to seeing that marionette you could predict. In other words, if Yuri is the user, then Lowberry, the other maid she always works with, is the ideal person to possess. One small problem with all this: Furikov can identify a Nen user at a glance, even those who are trying to hide it, and he didn't see anything in Yuri. As a reminder, the 5 secret Nen users he identified were Lowberry, Longhi, Belarainte, Shadul, and Yuharai. So it can't be Yuri, right? I mean, granted, he only briefly had a view of her face, and you've got to remember that checking people's eyes is how he sees if they're Nen users, and most of the time Lowberry was blocking his line of sight to her, or he was otherwise looking elsewhere, but that's ridiculous. It's not like Yuri could have suddenly become a Nen user in the span of minutes after he checked her. That just doesn't happen. So let's just put a pin in that for now. DHS's next idea for a culprit is Satobi, and nah, I don't think so. Furikov's Nen analysis rules him out, and he is not getting a pin put in him at all. So why am I discounting Satobi, but spending so much time diving into THS's analysis of Yuri? Well, that will all be revealed with Mr. Hunter Society's final speculative culprit, as well as the personal curveball I have to throw at it. So take it away, Mr. Hunter Society.
And without any further ado, this is the user of silent majority. It's no one. It is not a singular person. It is a group of people.
Yeah, this was the moment this theory really won me over, and I was like, oh my god, he's onto something. I want to see where this is going.
But if we have to choose one person...
And this was the moment that left me with almost as much disappointment as Chainsaw Man Chapter 231. Okay, jokes aside, Shimano. He says it's Shimano, and as much as I both agree and disagree, let's hear him out because some of his observations are very important to my final thesis, and seeing as he's the one who discovered them, not me, I feel he should also get to be the one who speaks on them. So why does he think it's Shimano? Let's keep watching the video and see if it explains his rationale. I mean, of course it's gonna... Hit the video.
When Kurapika got a phone call from 3 princes and asked to talk to the first prince, she acted on her own and forwarded the 3rd prince. Afterwards, she explained very clearly why she acted against his orders, because she knows the politics, she knows the royal family dynamics, and she knows that choosing to take 3rd Princess Zhangli's call was the best choice. And she was indeed right. And because of her action, that helped to keep Queen Awetu and Wobble safe. And remember that we mentioned at the beginning that the murders that happened, it kind of seems like they are helping Kurapika out, like they're taking out people that might cause some trouble for Prince Wobble. That because it fits her goal. She has a goal that benefits her. She wants to keep the kids safe as a giant FU to the whole system. A giant FU to the terrible things that empire committed. Out of all the people in that room, believe it or not, Shimono is the only one that we got a backstory for. We know where she comes from. We know that her family served the royals for generations. Both grandparents fulfilled their duties until their death, and her father and mother didn't. They became ill and they died. And on their dying bed, they told her to keep serving this family until she dies. And now I believe she is fulfilling this duty, but not to all of the royal families, because most of the royal families are lunatics, are really bad people. However, Queen Awetu and poor Prince Wobble, they have nothing to do with this. They have nothing to do with this madness that is going on. So of course, she would act in a way that will benefit them. She sees the good in some princes, and she is slowly taking out the guards of the corrupt ones to cause chaos and to weaken the princes, the maniacs that are participating in the war. Some of the eldest princes are conspiring to kill literal children just to take the throne. These are not good people, and Shimono knows that, and she's acting on it. And I have one thing that would really convince you that Shimono is really silent majority. That thing is, quite simply, the names of the Hatsu. It represents something. And if we can agree that there are a lot of similarities between the maids and their outfits and the marionette, we can, come on, they're basically dressed as the same thing, but maybe like the marionette of Silent Majority is like the war-ready garb, but it is the same outfit. But take the reference to Kakazaki 46, what we find ourselves with is a majority of people, the maids, who are in a position where they lack power and they lack representation and they are treated really bad. I cannot think of a more fitting name that would represent this kind of power that is shared between a group of people. If this power was used by another suspect in the room, I would seriously have a hard time just to understand why would it be called Silent Majority. But now when you think of the maids coming together, somehow being able to use this power, now it does make sense. They are a silent majority. The answer was in the title of the video all along. It is not a who. It is not who is silent majority, because it is a what. What is silent majority? It's a collective of people, the maids, that somehow are able to channel that aura into that manifestation, the puppet that summons the snakes and kills people. And the idea of a bunch of people sharing a power was introduced before in Hunter x Hunter, and it is the focus of the Succession War arc.
So yeah, up to this point, I have no issues. I think he's bang on the money. My belief in this theory is that silent majority is an ability shared among the maids. It's not just Shimano's ability. So far so good, full agreement from me, let's keep watching.
Yes, it sounds cool and all, but this theory is invalid, because as we all know, and like I mentioned, Shimono was cleared by Kurapika. And Kurapika clearly questioned Shimono, and she said that she is not silent majority, so yeah, that's that, I guess. Or is it? Did you attack Barragan?
Barragan? The man who died? No, it wasn't me.
Well, it technically wasn't her. It was the marionette who did the killing, but I digress. Can you use Nin?
That's crazy. I never even heard of it until yesterday.
Can you use Nin is a yes or no question. And she didn't answer. She didn't say yes or no. She just said that she never heard of Nin until yesterday. Well, doesn't have to be called Nin. Call it whatever you want. Some people are geniuses in using Nin, and they do not even know that there is such thing as Nin.
Okay, so I do start to have some issues here. HxH supposes that Shimano is cleverly and intentionally lying to Kurapika here and getting around Dowsing Chain through highly specific wording, and I do have to strongly disagree. First of all, I have seen multiple translations of this scene floating around, So I went and checked the raws, and here where she says that's crazy in the translation THS uses, which is a huge point against her for not answering yes or no, in the original she says tondemonai. So as you can see from Tanoshi Japanese, my dictionary of choice, when tondemonai is used as an expression instead of an adjective, it does in fact mean no. So yeah, this is one of the many mistakes that different translations, including the official, can make. And this is why I always get really anal about translations, because they can have huge consequences. Like, incorrectly translating this is really bad, because saying no has huge plot significance, as it clears Shimano from suspicion. So any translation that does not have her say no here, because tondemonai is a no, is bad in my opinion. But yeah, Kurapika asked if she could use nen, and the first thing she said was no. That does blow a big fat hole in THS's theory here, and I want to stress that's not his fault. He shouldn't have to go check the raws. That's the fault of the translator. So anyway, THS then goes from here into talking about the manga They Were 11, which I've already talked about in my videos on the subject, and oh buddy, again, I want to stress, I have the utmost respect for THS, and overall this is an extremely good video, and I never could have come up with this theory if I didn't have his to inspire me. That being said, I feel this is the moment in his video that he makes the biggest mistake in his entire process. See, he points out that this whole thing is foreshadowed by the manga They Were 11, in which a character with a lie detection power almost sniffs out the traitor, but the traitor uses a clever deception to fool him. Let's let the man speak.
You convince yourself that there is no chance. I mean, Kurapika cleared Shimono, so she's not silent majority. Come on. Think again. Just like Tada questions his own powers and he questions himself and he explains that, some people can get around it and trick my powers, Kurapika, for no reason whatsoever, mentions the same thing. Back in chapter 348, that was the seed. That was the flaw in Kurapika's chain. Kurapika's abilities can be tricked, and the parallels with They Were 11 right now to me are obvious.
Did you see it? Let me spell it out for you. Dude, you were so close. You were so close. You literally highlighted the line that gave away the exact answer, and then you never talked about it. When I watched your video and saw you highlighting it, I thought, oh my god, he's going there, and then he doesn't go there. He takes the safe way out and just says Shimano is the person at the center of this silent majority movement. Mr. Hunter Society's fatal mistake wasn't making an incorrect assumption or getting something wrong. It was failing to knock down that final bowling pin. He got a spare when he deserved a strike. I feel like a parasite right now because I am stealing glory that should be rightfully his. He should have been the one to come up with this theory, but he didn't. I'm not a genius who's cooked you all a 5-star meal. I'm just the person who remembered to take it out of the oven and serve it. So, I've said it before in this video, and I'll say it again. Please, go give Mr. Hunter Society's channel some love, because truly, he's the one who made this meal you're eating right now. So fine, I guess I'll explain it or whatever. When he said silent majority belongs to no one, he was right. And like he said, we've seen examples of this throughout the arc. Every damn organization seems to have some kind of autonomous group nen ability. But the one that silent majority is most similar to is Zombie Girl from the GU family. It's an ability that spontaneously comes to the aid of GU Mafia members who kill somebody in public and need to discreetly hide the body. And it's a post-mortem nen ability from the GU family's Undertaker, who previously died. So what I posit is this. All of the Kakin Empire's royal maids can use silent majority, but none of them know about it or have been trained in nen. And just like Kurapika says, sleeper agents who don't know they're lying are his weakness. So I think silent majority is an ability designed to watch over the maids from beyond the grave, created by another maid who died serving the royal family in one way or another. Maybe Shimano's parents, I don't know. Like a guardian spirit, it bounces from maid to maid, and they take turns being its user. While silent majority is transferred to a specific maid, they become a nen user, and the information on how exactly silent majority works is beamed into their mind just like when Stealth Dolphin hits Oito. They use the ability in whatever way they can to serve their interests, and then boom, it bounces to a different maid, and the one who just used it completely forgets it ever happened. It's the perfect agent of the masses. Revolutionary leaders, people who try to foment change and plan assassinations, they can be killed, but if silent majority's user dies, well, it just bounces to a different maid. And what's more, it makes the rebound effect make even more sense. If the curse kills its user, then it just keeps on bouncing. Only now, the previous failed user has powered it up even further with postmortem Nen, and they no longer have the memories to tell anybody how the ability works if they're interrogated because they're fucking dead. It's the perfect agent of change. It can kill off oppressors. The culprit is nearly impossible to catch and identify, especially in a society where the high-ranking royals and soldiers all use Nen and will be looking for a Nen user. And the only way to stamp it out is to kill all the maids. And obviously they can't do that, because they need the maids, the same way the wealthy 1% need the working class that they oppress. Think about it. If Silent Majority kills somebody, everybody's gonna be on the lookout for a Nen user, so an ability that passes from person to person, but only between people who aren't trained in Nen, well, they're never gonna figure it out. The maids killing from the shadows to steer things to their advantage will never be caught. One of my favorite things THS said in his video is that the Silent Majority doll looks like a maid dressed for war. Because it is! This isn't just a tool of Nen warfare, it's a tool of class warfare. It is the common people's only hope to strike back against the system that grinds them into meat. The majority is not silent because they hold their tongues. The Silent Majority is silent because they literally do not remember. So yeah, Shimano is the user of Silent Majority, but so is Yuri. And I think this explains why the behavior of the person using the ability varies wildly, even though their goals seem pretty darn consistent. I think, after Furikov had already checked her, Silent Majority got passed to Yuri, and she used it to kill Berrigan. As for Muhan and Woody and everyone else who died day one, well, they could have been killed by any one of the Silent Majority aboard this ship who promptly forgot that they were the culprit. With all that being said, I've been CJ from SuccWarCentral. I just want to once again give the Hunter Society a huge thank you for giving me carte blanche to use his video, and I hope you check out his channel, just as I hope you have a wonderful day. Alrighty folks, that was quite a ride, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed, unless you skipped straight here, in which case, welcome back. So for all those theories that I decided to stand by, the question must be raised of why I didn't stand by the others. So enjoy a lightning round of me rejecting my own theories that at this time I no longer believe. This one hurts to reject because it's one of my most popular videos, but I just think I was wrong. Yes, Illumi is avoiding Hisoka, but it's because that's how he fights. His needles are a bad match for bungee gum, and he would be much better served by using a bunch of needle people collected from the lower tiers to kill Hisoka with some sort of Home Alone bullshit than he ever would by engaging the world's worst bisexual representation in a direct fight. I think that's a much more reasonable explanation than he's actually working for Hisoka, even though this is a terrible idea and he should never actually do that, and it would backstab him in the long run and just make things way worse for him. Okay, it's not that I'm totally discounting this one, but does it matter? Would it being true actually enhance my experience of the series in any way? And even if it is true, would we ever get it confirmed? Probably not. This is another theory best left in the dust, I think. This video was really more speculation than analysis anyway, and honestly, in retrospect, I do think I was massively overcomplicating and overthinking what is a fairly simple issue. For all the extremely complicated systems and things and relationships in Hunter x Hunter, I genuinely, you're gonna laugh at me, I genuinely think Nen is on the simpler end and is designed to, generally speaking, make intuitive sense, and Togashi tends to avoid adding unnecessary complexity to it. I'm not calling Nen simple and shallow, mind you. It's just a system with a small amount of complexity and a high amount of depth, which is quite an achievement in all honesty. Pariston. He used to be my #1 candidate for Silent Majority, but now that I honestly think Dwazel's kids are the ones that came from beyond, I don't see any real reason for him to be using Silent Majority or to be in the walls, in the room of 1014 that is. I do think my theory that he's on the ship in a pocket dimension is sound, but otherwise these videos just don't resonate with me anymore. I mean, this one would be really funny, but even in this video, I say it's not my #1 theory, and it's even lower now. This one was never my #1, and honestly, the thing that throws me is the Silent Majority user's internal monologue. It just doesn't come across as Longhi at all, and I really can't imagine her talking like that, but hey, maybe she's just really that two-faced. Also, I just feel like, given how obsessed Togashi has been lately with group Nen abilities, I say lately, it's been like the last 10 years. Anyway, I think he introduces one after another. He's been introducing them over and over and over. Like every chance he gets to cram in a group Nen ability this arc, he does it. So this is honestly a much more realistic outcome for it than it being one person. Okay, look, I was very confident in this theory at the time, but I got better. See, a lot of my reasoning was, it makes symbolic sense, and Togashi's big on his symbolism. However, I've come to notice another piece of symbolic evidence that actually contradicts it. See, the name of Halkenberg's ability is Grimal les Dissonances, named after a famous conductorless orchestra. But that symbolism only really works for me if, you know, Halkenberg actually loses access to the ability and stops being its conductor, which is a problem for this theory. I don't think Togashi would name a Nen ability after a conductorless orchestra if it was gonna, you know, have a conductor. So yeah, that's why I didn't include these specific theories. And now, before we call it a night, I want to make a request to you all. See, I have written down on my deranged mania tablet of video ideas the phrase, Sleeper Agent Ginta. However, I don't remember what I was thinking or why. Presumably that Ginta of the Zodiacs is a sleeper agent who's had his memories modified the way Kurapika suspects is possible. I've always personally believed that there might actually be a second traitor in the group, but Ginta? I don't know, folks. I genuinely cannot for the life of me remember why I wrote down this phrase over a year ago. Why would I think it was Ginta? I don't think about Ginta ever. He's like the least interesting member of the Zodiacs to me. Design-wise, personality-wise, this guy does nothing for me. And I don't think about him. He doesn't do a lot. He doesn't say a lot. As far as I can see, I have no basis to suspect that he would be this secret traitor above any of the others who would make more sense. Like, I don't know, Mizaistam or Kanzai or Sako. So what was I thinking? Can someone please tell me what the hell I was cooking? I really want to figure it out, just because I don't understand. Like, this must have been one of those moments where I was like half asleep, had this idea, scrambled out of bed, wrote it down, and then went back to sleep and forgot about it the next day. I mean, this has happened, and some of my best videos have come out of that. But I don't know. What was I thinking? Someone tell me. Someone help me. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this little catch-up / locking in of my predictions. I hope you all are as excited as I am for what's coming next week. Oh, I've been this thing that's coming next week. Oh, I've been waiting for it for so long. I honestly kind of never thought it was gonna come out. I was a little worried about it, but we're getting it. That's right, baby. I'm so excited for the Frostpunk 2 DLC, Breach of Trust. I'm just kidding, guys. No, but seriously, I feel like this is going to be a great batch of chapters. Just looking at Togashi's progress, I mean, he's got 21 done, and the vast majority of the inking done through chapter 431. Before, I was saying, like, hey, I don't want to be too optimistic, but I think this might be a 20-chapter batch. However, guys, I gotta be honest. I mean, looking at these numbers, I don't think that a 30-chapter batch is out of the realm of possibility. This could be the greatest batch of Hunter x Hunter chapters that we've had in like decades. Has it been decades? I don't know. I'm not checking the hiatus chart now because I got better things to do, and also I'm recording. You get the idea. Anyway, guys, I haven't even been around that long. Well, no, I have not liked Hunter x Hunter for decades, yet. I've liked Hunter x Hunter for 6 years, okay? Okay, 6 years. But yeah, this is also gonna be the first batch of chapters that I fully cover, that I'm here for the start and end of, and just, wow, that's crazy to think about. Anyway, guys, this has been fun. I will see you soon with more videos, because the grind never stops. I mean, until I get tired of it, but that every time that happens, I stop being tired of it before I run out of videos to upload. So like, as far as things are going, it really does look like I just might be able to talk about Hunter x Hunter until the fucking sun goes black, because I love Hunter x Hunter so much, and I love you guys. Thank you for sticking with me all this time. Thank you for watching my stuff. It really means the world. I mean, it's crazy to think that I have actual thousands of people listening to my opinions on Hunter x Hunter. That's fucking crazy. I started this YouTube channel just so I would have somewhere to get my thoughts down and stop annoying the people close to me with my unceasing urge to yap. But like, it's crazy to think about how far we've come, and oh my god, Hunter x Hunter is so back. Fun fact, I actually pulled an all-nighter last night because I just couldn't sleep because I was so excited about Hunter x Hunter's return. Okay, that's enough out of me, folks. Love you all, and I hope you have a wonderful day.